Piero Salatino, a delegate rector of the university, for the institutional greetings and welcome speech. Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to me to be here. It's a great honor to me to welcome all of you in the name of the Federico II University, on behalf of the rector, who is not actually here today because he has another important institutional event. Nevertheless, he is sharing this initiative, and I want to welcome all the people here with an image. Yes, this is the image I want to share with you, just to show you where we are. We are in a glorious ancient university. Federico II University is celebrating an important event this year. So we are almost closer to celebrate an important anniversary for this university. Federico II has an important record. Is the first state university, Friedrich II, on Hohenhafen, funded this university, and he was able to anticipate the contemporary modern mission of all universities all over the world. Federico II is a general university. It is ranked second or third for the number of students. And I would like to show you a second slide to make you understand our positioning. We have different departments. As you may read from this slide, we have 26 departments. If you see next slide, perfect, you can see all the different departments. We have four different schools. We are at the heart of our faculty. We are at the law department, and in a few minutes we'll have the opportunity to listen to the welcome speech by the director of this faculty, Mr. Sandro Staiano. Today is a very important event. I want to thank Global, this organization who decided to choose this department as the seat for this event. This is a very beautiful building. You may observe it, but this university is also very important for its commitment within the green and ecological sector. The energy transition is an important topic from different points of view, in the scientific standpoint, but also from the point of view of resource access. I want to share with you the IEA declaration by the executive director of the World Energy Outlook Special Report, IEA, who says that today's supply and investment plans for many critical minerals fall well short of what is needed to support an acceleration in the deployment of solar panels. And this is why I use this sentence very often in my seminars. I also use another sentence by Bernie Sanders. This is Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders said in a special event in 2016 during a religious Laudato Si event. He said that ethics plays a core position. Our challenge is mostly a moral issue. With this sentence, I want to welcome all of you. You have the opportunity to share a multidisciplinary conference that I hope is very fruitful. And I take this opportunity to thank Globe and all the other organizers. We have some guests from the United States. We have Manu Siram, who's connected from the United States, from the United States State Department. I just want to ask you to wait, to be very patient, and I'm asking our technical staff to launch this speech.
Varun Sivaram. We have also Marco Margheri, chairman of WEC Italy, with us via web connection. So please, I ask to share the video with us. Marco, can you hear us? Can you hear us? Okay. No, we can't hear you. Non ti sentiamo. No,
Unfortunately, we can hear Marco Margheri.
Can you hear us?
You not hear me?
Oh, okay. Okay, Marco, please.
Good. I'm sorry, apologies. And apologies to Varun for this hiccup. Now, let me just rapidly, quickly, and I leave it to Varun for his keynote. But first and foremost, let me thank you all for this organization. Let me thank the University Federico II in Naples for their hospitality. And as the Dean of the University just said, it's not by chance that we're there. It's not a location. It's an extraordinary partner. Let me flag the work that we're doing with Professor Gabriela De Maio on energy communities, energy innovation, all sorts of new frontiers of our reflection. So thank you very much. And of course, it's a bit displeasing to see Naples across the camera. I know that many friends from the State Department are accompanying now Special Envoy Kerry. Varun is like me here in Washington, D.C., but let's hope that at some point we will restart reconnecting in person, and definitely Naples is top of the list of the places where we would like to reconnect. Let me say three things straight, and then I will leave it to Varun. Why the G20 in this moment and the role of the United States in the G20 in this moment are at the core of WEC Italy's interest and what we are seeing also with the contribution of the restarting of the World Energy Council in the United States that will be presented for the first time in this G20 side event today in Naples, thanks to the friends of EPRI. Well, first and foremost, let me set this straight. This administration is the biggest news for climate change policy that has happened over the past few years. Not only this administration has pivoted, has made the United States pivoting again to climate action, but also the speed, magnitude, and the organic approach, the whole of government approach that the administration is bringing about is truly creating momentum domestically in the United States, and those who are lucky enough to experience that on a daily basis are seeing that, but also on the international stage. And I think Special Envoy Secretary Kerry has to be commended for his relentless traveling throughout the world, to the Gulf, to Europe, really recreating, reweaving this fabric. The second point, which I think is very relevant to your location today and to the action of WEC Italy, is that this happens at a point in time in which Italy has, let's say, a calendar year that is very important with the presidency of the G20 and with the co-chair of COP26 later this year in Glasgow, with a specific dedication to a pre-COP on youth that Italy is promoting and bringing about. But let me say that this would be only formal. In reality, the substance is Italy has the opportunity of being amongst the driving forces of these new, renewed, stronger climate action. And I have to say the G20 in Venice on finance has been, in the view of the commentators, and I think in the view of energy practitioners, a major positive point. And I think that yet again, a second visit of Special Envoy Secretary Kerry to Italy these days is a testimony to the role that Italy can and has to play. A third and last point. I think Europe and the United States are coming together to a table with many contentious topics. Let's not make it like there was no discussion. There is a number of discussions that we have to have. In the United States, we are discussing on climate disclosures across the Atlantic, cross-border adjustment mechanisms and trade and technology. But there is definitely 2 points that I think are areas for convergence. One point is definitely the recognition that I sense here, and this is a bit of a question maybe to Varun, that Europe has really defined its political leadership, its geopolitical leadership on climate. So this, I think, is a building block for a good discussion to start. There is a lot of awareness, there is a lot of interest for what the European Union has been coming up with and the ideas that the European Union is working around. And on the United States side, let's not forget that the United States are an incredible driving force for ideas, innovations, investments. And in this whole of government approach, the United States administration is triggering innovation across the board. So I think Europe can learn and can benefit from this wide open approach that sees technology with a very wide-ranging approach, from renewables to new nuclear, to nuclear fusion, to CCUS, to advanced biofuels, to demand-side digital technologies. I think this wealth of approaches, this wealth of market forces are a positive force that Europe can also integrate in its regulatory fabric. And I think the discussions that are starting today in Naples are a crucial one. Let me leave the floor to Varun Sivaram and welcome Varun to Italy. I have to say, let me give you a spoiler. You will learn, you will hear this name over and over again. Varun is a thought leader here. I am so thankful for him to be with us. He has been critical to shaping Secretary Kerry's team vision on technology, on global outreach. He will, I think, tell better than I could about his experiences with technology, with applying technology and advanced technology to quantum leaping the situation of the energy transition, for example, in India, a country that he knows very well, and in bringing about this, inclusive approach to climate change and climate action that should not be concentrated in developed world and developed communities, but should integrate underprivileged communities and underprivileged regions of the world. And on top of that, he is a testimony to how this administration is capable of integrating young, bright, innovative minds. So, Varun, I couldn't be happier to be the one introducing you to, I guess, your first Italian comment in your new function. But really welcome from the World Energy Council, welcome from our partners at Globe Italy. Thank you for the work that you're doing in such a close contact with Secretary Kerry, with Special Envoy Kerry, and thank you for having accepted our invitation.
That is exceedingly generous, Marco. Thank you so much. Let me say I have the privilege of getting to share the city, Washington, D.C. with Marco, who is omnipresent. I see him everywhere. He is an extraordinarily respected and authoritative voice I think Italy very proud. We are lucky to have him here in DC. I hope I will be able to come soon to Italy, but it is great that my secretary is currently in Naples, and it's so important that Italy has demonstrated the leadership that Marco has spoken about, for example, in the G20, in the COP. Let me spend a few minutes to go through 3 topics for this address. And let me also quickly thank the World Energy Council, very kind of you to host me. The first of the 3 will be, let me give an overview of the United States' international climate strategy that Secretary Kerry is leading. Second, let's talk about the pivotal role that energy plays, given that we are talking to the World Energy Council. And third, let me suggest a few avenues for how I think international collaboration, particularly on innovation, as Marco telegraphed, is critical to achieving our climate goals. By way of introduction, I serve as Secretary Kerry's Senior Director for Clean Energy and Innovation. So I lead our team focused on everything energy related. And Secretary Kerry will say bluntly, energy policy is climate policy. Energy, as you know, is 75% of the world's emissions. And so a clean energy transition is at the heart of a net zero transition. Secretary Kerry gave his landmark climate speech just on Monday this week in London and at the Kew Gardens. I'll share with you the notes that we got back from the team there traveling was, he gave the speech in a greenhouse that was well over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. And the setting couldn't have been more apt, but he is, he is committed to the cause, and so gave an entire hour-long speech in that sweltering greenhouse. In that speech, he laid out what our international climate strategy has been and will be going forward. To date, the United States for the last 6 months has been focused on reestablishing its leadership with what we say humility and ambition. Humility for the 4 years we lost of leadership, and ambition for reestablishing our position. On day 1, President Biden rejoined the Paris Agreement. And then within 100 days, the United States hosted the Leaders Summit. At the Leaders Summit, not only did we put forward our own ambitious NDC to cut emissions by half or more by 2030, but we also brought together new commitments from around the world. We were able to announce that Canada had announced a new NDC, Japan an NDC of 46 to 50%, that Korea would enhance its NDC. All of this, of course, came against the backdrop of the European Union's very impressive pre-existing commitment. And this week's rollout of the Fit for 55 package is super interesting. I think it's the most comprehensive package there exists in the world to achieve a set of ambitious climate goals. And so by the time of the Leaders Summit in April, 55% of the world by GDP had signed up to an agenda to reach net zero by 2050, the best hope of keeping 1.5 degrees alive. That leaves, of course, 45%. And Secretary Kerry has made it clear that this is now his main priority, to bring together the world's major economies to make commitments that are commensurate with the challenge by Glasgow. Where Glasgow, he says, in 100 days, I'll see you in Glasgow so we can save the next 100 years. One of those countries Marco mentioned that I am particularly close with is India. And I'm very optimistic on India. Even though India has not enhanced its NDC, India has made a political commitment on energy. It said, even though we're not going to change our formal climate commitment to the COP, Modi has come out, Prime Minister Modi has come out and made a commitment to 450 gigawatts of renewable energy. Well, if they hit that commitment, then at least in their power sector, India is well on track for the clean energy transition we need. The stakes could scarcely be higher. India by 2040 is currently on track to become the world's second largest emitter behind only China, and its emissions are projected to soar. And so as we help India on this track to 450 gigawatts, that can be one of the most meaningful things we do to abate the climate crisis. I'll talk briefly about what our domestic goals are, but then I'll quickly pivot to the international side, because if the United States does what we've said we'll do, and we achieve this 50% reduction, then more than 95% of the world's future emissions are going to come from outside of the United States. That's where the real climate problem will be. domestically, we have an ambitious agenda that President Biden has rolled out. First through the American plan, and most recently you've seen partisan infrastructure package. It will invest heavily at home to jobs, 500,000 electric vehicle chargers, a carbon-free power sector by 2035 using wind and solar, etc., and a path to net zero emissions by 2050. But around the world, the sources of this growth are predominantly in the emerging economies. The United States and Europe, if we accomplish our goals, we will become dwindlingly irrelevant emissions problem. Therefore, I think, let me move to the second, the energy needs of the world are. Because the more we reframe this topic as an energy topic, the more we get constructive engagement. India, for example, have historically been obstructionist when it comes to climate, but they've been very constructive when it comes to energy. The United States and India, the Agenda 2030 part, we're not asking India to get to net zero. We are asking India to get to 450 gigawatts of renewables by 2030. That distinction is in Saudi Arabia. Saudi often posed problems for international climate negotiations, but they are very enthusiastic about their 50 energy target and in their investment in green hydrogen, in carbon capture and sequestration. And therefore, again, it turns out to be the constructive axis of cooperation when some can be a wedge issue. I'll note briefly, and the previous speaker had cited the
Varun, sorry
yes.
to interject. Your audio is a bit disturbed. Can I propose for you maybe to switch the video off to see if the quality of the audio gets back again?
Yes,
Yeah,
let's see if this improves. How is this, Marco?
It works
It's
fine.
better.
Thanks.
Great. I'm so sorry about that. So let me say on the second topic on energy needs, we heard from all last week, Fatih Birol was in town. Marco and I saw him. This is the head of the IEA. And they've really laid out the framework for what the energy component of the net zero transition is. And it consists of three subcomponents. First, there is deploying the technologies we already have. That means ramping up to more than 1,000 gigawatts of wind and solar by 2030. Second, it means developing the technologies we'll need. That Marco alluded to, there's a range of technologies that are not yet ready for markets, but 50% of the emission reductions that we'll need by 2050 must come from technologies that today are not ready for market. Marco mentioned some of them. I'll restate. These include long duration energy storage, carbon capture and direct air capture, advanced mobility, advanced nuclear and renewable energy, and the list goes on. The third subcomponent of this energy path to net zero is to rapidly ramp down the use of fossil fuels. And if we do the first two correctly, deployment and innovation, we will actually have no need for new investments in coal, oil, or gas production. So all this is to say, if we frame this as an energy challenge, we will find constructive collaborators around the world. Often this is a bureaucratic artifact. In India, for example, the ministry responsible for the power sector transition tends to be a much more constructive interlocutor than the other ministries that might look at other areas like climate policy. I propose that we encourage countries to invest in what will help their economies, and innovation will certainly present an economic opportunity around the world. So that brings me to my third point, which is what are the needs for international collaboration? I think there are various areas where international collaboration is a no-brainer. There are some areas, like Marco has mentioned, that there are clear trade-offs, that there are clear divergences. And then I think, finally, there are ways in which the United States must make the conscious decision, as we have been doing, to put climate change central in our foreign policy. Let me go through these in turn. The first way that international collaboration is kind of a no-brainer is in things where we don't have divergent interests. So technical standards is one way where countries can collaborate to create a larger market for clean energy technologies. For example, electric vehicle charging standards or smart grid standards. And in doing so, raise the market size for all countries. Similarly, we can collaborate on pre-competitive research and development and demonstration. again, to increase the solution set to make clean energy transitions cheaper for all of us. And third is policy alignment, making sure that as we all design policies, as the EU designs its Fit for 55 policy, for example, that these policies, particularly on the demand side, are aligned in such a way that we create the largest markets possible for these innovative technologies of the future. The second way, however, is a way in which collaboration is not guaranteed because we have some divergences. You can imagine that every country in the world now sees an opportunity that in the 20th century, the states that had oil or gas under their borders, the Saudi Arabias of the world, naturally benefited of the geopolitics of being producers. Now, in the clean energy economy, any country that is willing to invest in the technology and manufacturing can become a clean energy superpower and can assure its own energy security. Moreover, multi-trillion-dollar markets are emerging around the world for clean energy technologies. And the countries that dominate or capture shares of these markets will benefit economically. Therefore, there is a burgeoning competition. It's critical that we recognize this competition. The United States is in competition with Europe, it's in competition with China, etc. But we also recognize the areas of collaboration, which are if we can increase the market size for all countries, but continue to compete to capture a share, then at least we are lifting all boats with a rising tide, rather than treating every area of this clean energy economy as a zero-sum competition. Finally, I'll say that in an anarchic international world, we may not solve climate change, but in a world with clear leadership, we have a shot. The United States is making a conscious decision to put climate change at the center of our foreign policy, and that means elevating it as a core bilateral issue with each of our main partners, particularly this 45% of the world that I told you that hadn't yet signed up to a 1.5 future. What that means is the United States, by making climate central, is going to ensure that it's at the top, the very top of its agenda with each of its partners. That's the kind of forcing function that takes us out of the anarchic prisoner's dilemma of international relations and into a more ordered equilibrium, where it's actually possible with this forcing function for countries to make climate choices that they might not otherwise make purely based on individual self-interest. That is my hope, that the United States will step up once again, and we already have started to do so, and that our partners in Europe who have been holding the mantle of climate leadership for so long will join us in lockstep, so that the rest of the world looks to the 55% of the world that's made this decision and says, there's no way we can get away with not making climate our #1 priority. That if we don't, not only will we be failing our obligations under the Paris Agreement, but there will be real economic, political, and geopolitical consequences for not conforming to a world where we actually constructively solve climate change. So with that, let me pause. Thank you so much to the World Energy Council for having me, to Marco for the generous introduction, and I hope you all have a wonderful time in this beautiful city of Naples.
Thank you, Varun, and thank you for the message you're giving, that climate is truly at the core of geopolitical relations, security relations, and the reshaping, let's say a positive reshaping of some portions of the world order. I understand that we have a number of guests in Naples, including Francesco LaCamera, who I want to salute, director of IRENA and a friend of WEC and one of our nationals in the climate and energy debate. So I think we will just give over the floor to Naples, Paolo, and stop here. Thank you again, Varun, and thank you all. Thank you to the teams of WEC Italy and Globe for putting this together.
Thank you, Marco. Thank you, Mr. Varun Sivram. There is an applause. Okay. Thank you for this kind of connection from the United States, from bringing us the US perspective. Now we have, I switch in Italian. Abbiamo un saluto, un breve saluto del direttore del Dipartimento.
Now there's going to be a short greeting by the director of the law studies faculty. He is Mr. Migliore, Gennaro Migliore. Please, Mr. Migliore, I leave the floor to Mr. Stagliano and then to Mr. LaCamera. Thank you. I would like to focus on the speech by Mr. Salatino on where we are. We are at the law department at the Federico II University. This university is about to turn 800 years old. It is a statal university. It was actually a university of the empire before. It was a public university, and usually in the past, all universities actually were owned by the church. But this was a public one, as I repeat, and I repeat, this university has always prepared the the experts of the empire as far as law was concerned. So this thing is not by chance. And in fact, I would like to stress a couple of elements in this short speech I'm going to give. So ecological transition needs some changes in behavior and needs some changes in economics as well, especially as far as Italy is concerned. This also means that we need to change the development axe, and Italy has always been focused on the northern part of the country, but the whole country should also be focused on the southern area, so to bet on their economic production and a further economic development. I I mentioned the original configuration of Federico II University because I think that the further topic we should reflect on is the possibility of having new transformations that have been asked for, that have been requested, so to create an international debate around this topic, around ecological transition. We need to reach a turning point if we really want to do something tangible, to do something in a tangible way from the point of view of ecological transition, because political and administration systems have to stand this very hard transformation. These targets have to be reached yet, haven't been reached yet. And on the other hand, we know that we are going to face several obstacles. In fact, ecological transition is often denied. There are some people who think that there is no need for transforming our energy system, and this attitude is typical in different countries, in different nations and governments. And sometimes there is a lack of alignment between the population, between citizens and the government. And then we also have other risks and obstacles coming from the need for reorganizing the administration system. When the Ministry for the Ecological Transition was established in Italy, this solution was interpreted by someone as something weird. And actually, being aware of of the need of adjusting political and administration systems is very scarce. So we will need to focus more on this. We will need to create fundings. We will need to allocate more money coming from the Next Generation EU and from the PNR. So we are thinking about 68 billion euros financing and more than 59 billion euros regarding the PNR and more than 9 billion euros regarding the complementary fund. Well, all these funds will deeply impact the administration system, which will have to be adjusted as soon as possible if we really want to win this battle, if we really want to win this challenge. I think that some of the contributions that we will be given today some of the contributions we will have today will have to be focused on these aspects. And this location, the University Federico II, is a special place to do something similar, to carry out a similar mission. Thank you very much. I wish you a fruitful meeting. I now leave the floor to the director of the International Renewable Energy Agency, Mr. LaCamera, Francesco LaCamera. Thank you, Mr. LaCamera. I will also ask Katie Gereza and Ubda Bennett to get ready because they are going to speak. They're going to speak after Mr. LaCamera. Now, a short introduction in Italian, and then I will have to switch to English. So thank you very much, Gennaro, for accepting this change in the program. As we were saying before, we met in previous lives. Gennaro was working in the Anti-Mafia Commission. I remember our first meeting. Yes, it was back in that time, and we have always got on well together. I would like to thank everybody for the invitation and for the organization of this meeting. Next time you will invite me, I hope you are going to quote some of my words and some words by my agency. So that's a good sign, because that's a proof that our work is wide known to everybody.
Distinguished and diverse speakers across different sectors and discipline. It is a reflection on the understanding that we can no longer remain in our silos, but act in tandem to tackle the greatest challenges of our time. The impact of climate change are clear and present. Only in the last couple of weeks, we have seen the devastation caused by extreme weather events. The significance of the choices we make in the coming years is evident. Science tells us that we must halve our emission by 2030 compared with 1990. There is no longer room for error. What we do in the coming months and years will define our ability to stay on the 1.5-degree pathway. And transforming the energy system is the single most important action that we must take. And we know what we need to be done. Since our arena inception in 2011, our members, we are the only global energy agency. We have now 166 members, another 20 in accession. So we are all the UN members, be members also of ARENA. The European Union is part of our membership, as all the EU member states. So the significance of the choice we make in the coming years is evident, as I told you. And transforming the energy system is the single most important action we must take. And we know that what has to be done, as I say. The ARENA vision of the energy future is today mainstream. So what is it's also interesting to notice that we have been sending this message from when from the beginning of our, and there was just a vision of a niche. And now our vision of the energy system of the future based on renewables is becoming mainstream, and everyone is joining in this respect. Our World Energy Transition Outlook, you can download for free from our website, has been developed with having this in mind. It is rooted in the sense of urgency to act on climate change, but resolute in charting a realistic path towards a resilient and more equitable world. Let me share a few highlights from the report to set the stage of our discussion. As you can see from the slide, we see that the energy efficiency and electrification are the major driver of the transformation. And where renewables with green hydrogen and biomass could be the biomass, sustainable biomass can be the enabler of this transition. And the World Energy Transition Outlook set the stage for this step change. But several prerequisites frame its conclusion. We have captured them in this guiding framework of the Vito theory of change. We can go to the next slide, please. The outlook prioritizes a path that is most likely to rapidly reduce emissions in the coming decade and set the trajectory for developing the most promising technologies. It provides a timeline and clarity on the steps to be taken to manage the transition from fossil fuel to a cleaner energy system. And it shows the success will only be possible if the process is inclusive, from the engagement of citizens at local level to ensure that all countries of the world have an opportunity to keep pace with and benefit from the transition. So one of our core thinking is that the transition could be also an enabler for a more equitable and fairer world. So we can go to the next slide where we point out what is needed in terms of investment. As you can see from the slide, when we compare what we need with the actual commitment, we need more 33 trillion of US dollars for getting where we should be. This means at the average 4.5 trillion US dollar per year. This means 3 times the actual investment in renewables. And you can see how this investment may go in all areas: energy efficiency, renewables, electrification, and others. So it's really a big investment, that's a big increase in investment that we need. But we have not only to look at the cost of moving the transition, we have also to look to the benefits. And so there are not only costs. So this brings us to the next slide, where it is evident that in our assessment, if we consider also the externality and depend on how we consider those externality, we can see that for every dollar spent, the benefit we can receive can be up to 2 times saving to 5.5 savings if we include the reduced externality concerning the climate change, the outdoor air pollution, and the indoor air pollution. So they are not costs, they are investment that may bring benefits to us. And then it's also important from a human development point of view. So naturally, going for the energy transition, we are going to an uncharted territory. And it's also evident that we have not just reduced the energy transition to a technological choices. So it's important to consider the human part of this exercise. So this brings us to the next slide, where we make clear that making the transition possible, we need structural change also in the policies. So what is, I think, unique in the work of RINA, that we not only consider the technology, scenario, models are models. We enjoy our own models for many years, so we don't use the models of others. But it was important to know that the technology choices are not everything. And our report is making clear also the policies we need to get the result and stay in the context of scenario that we are designing. So it's important that all the aspects of society are to bring in the context with the enabling policies and so on. And this brings also on the possible impact, because it's an indicator that we often use concerning the GDP, and this brings on the next slide when we talk about economy, where we can see that the contribution of the energy transition and GDP is a positive one. So the fact that going for clean is clear also going for the better from an economic point of view. Naturally, the major contribution will be in the first decade, because of this decade where we need the major efforts, and then we will slowly decrease, but having always a positive impact in terms of GDP. So going for the transition is not only good for the environment, it's also good for an economic perspective. And this brings to the next slide, where we consider also the impact in terms of jobs. And as you can see from the 58 million people working on energy in 2019, we project that there will be 122 million working on the energy in 2020. And we will see that people working in renewables, today 11.5 million, will grow up to 43 million in 2050. And the remaining part is the people that will work on the energy efficiency and working on the infrastructure. So the energy transition will bring more jobs, and so a major social impact in our daily life. This brings us to the next slides, where for the first time we have tried to capture all this dimension of the energy transition, so the economic, social, environmental, distribution, access elements, in building what we have called the ARENA Energy Transition Welfare Index. And this is a unique contribution coming from ARENA to the debate. The index is to provide an empirical basis to help policymakers understand different dimensions of the transition and reap the full benefit of the energy transition itself. And for the first time, we also report on the distributional and energy access dimension that are often overlooked in the energy transition analysis. So, ladies and gentlemen, we see a renewed commitment to an energy transition. We have also listened to the words coming from our friends from the States. And the community of countries striving for a net zero energy future is growing day after day. But the progress remains uneven across countries and regions. And the energy transition trends indicate that a large part of the world, including the most vulnerable countries, are not moving at the necessary pace. We can no longer afford to overlook widening gaps and growing inequality. I hope that G20 will take care of this consideration. Energy plays a vital role in changing the situation. This is why ARENA's World Energy Transition Outlook provides the technology, policy, and investment element to help shape a different energy future. And this energy future is not just a full replacement. It is a new system based on decentralized and digitalized technologies with ample new participants. Today, 80% of people live in countries that are net importers of fossil fuels. By contrast, every country has some source of renewable to harness. This fact is already tackling the imagination of millions who have become participants into the new system. This is a new energy system that opens immense new possibilities for resilient economies and societies. So, ladies and gentlemen, the spirit of the people, prosperity, and planet enshrine this sustainable development agenda and prioritizing by the G20 presidency must guide all our action. ARENA is a prime platform for international cooperation, remains committed to effectively leading the global energy transition toward a more resilient, inclusive, and equitable world. So I look forward to our discussion today and working with all of you to make this must-need transition a reality. I hope this will be also one of the first events in Naples where I can still working together with the Federico II University. Thank you very much.
Grazie. Grazie. Grazie al direttore LaCamera. E adesso dalla prospettiva, siamo passati dalla prospettiva europea.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your perspective. We have had the opportunity to see different situations from the United States to Europe and now Italy with Mr. Gennaro Migliore, President of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Mediterranean. Thank you very much. I want to thank all the people who have contributed to the organization of this event. I want to thank Deputy Rector Mr. Salatino. I want to stress that it's a great pleasure to me to be back to my university. I studied physics here at this university, and today I'm back to this great university as the president of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Mediterranean. It's a great opportunity to me to be here to talk about the different opportunities that we have in this transition within the Mediterranean area. I want to thank the World Energy Council, especially Mr. Crea, for his contribution. Prosperity, planet, and energy oblige us to rethink the traditional models that we have implemented to base the exploitation of fossil resources. This system has governed our systems, as we have just heard. The challenge is clear, but very complex at the same time. We have to work in a finished natural resource system. Resources have been totally exploited. Balances, natural and ecological balances have been totally changed. And for this reason, we have to rethink the world energy system. We have to rethink this system, especially within the Mediterranean region. Mare Nostrum is actually an important resource which has generated a lot of risks. We need to work to calm the situation and to turn the Mediterranean Sea into a far-sighting area, peaceful area. Here, renewable resources are an extraordinary driver. No prosperity is possible without energy. We can think of the prosperity of people without energy. We can think the work without energy. For this reason, today we have to work for a sustainable and inclusive and resilient and compatible energy system. Last year, 80% of the new energy capacity installed has been renewed with a record volume, 500 gigawatts. Is something extraordinary. Nevertheless, we cannot still talk about a success. Mr. Guterres, the UN General Secretary, has said that we are still very far from the objectives. The energy transition can respond to long and short-term exigencies. In our countries, there are a lot of reasons to take into consideration in order to improve the situation within the Mediterranean area. We have heard that there's a special need for better qualification. Mr. Stroiano has said that. I think that we need to go beyond. We need to go back to the second war, when our generations were affected, but we were able to recover And we need that same recovery. We need to recover from pandemic this time. But I know that we have those skills, those capacities. I would like to launch a proposal. I hope this proposal may be heard also in other situations. For instance, within the G20, I want to propose a Mediterranean cooperation, referring to what we did 70 years ago after Second World War. We are talking about renewable energies. We are talking about renewable energy forums within different governments in Europe. This will be a great challenge to Mediterranean countries. That would be also extremely important for the geopolitical stability. As one of the founders of the European Union and of the CECA, the previous Carbon and Steel Association, which paved the way for the current European Union, the word peace shall not be protected without cooperation. Many people are talking about a third world war due to resources within the Mediterranean area. Mare Nostrum, the Mediterranean Sea, is rich in resources and energy. According to the IRENA reports, the average investment in renewable energies corresponds to many European billions. Europe did not pay attention too much to this situation. This area, the Mediterranean area, has always been considered as a buffer area, but the Mediterranean area deserves more. It's more than a simple buffer. We need to understand the sense of problems. There are great opportunities, in my opinion. The desert, for instance. The desert is only seen as a problem, something difficult to cross, where there are a lot of wars, conflicts, but could be a great resource to produce energy and other renewable energies. This is why to build up an energy system, an energy forum would be very important. Also from a geopolitical point of view, many countries may change their energy systems towards new opportunities, reducing the use of fossil energies for a more sustainable system. Our reports focuses on the possibility to create millions of new jobs. This may lead to a new economic regional resilience through a better energy security system with a strong economic differentiation with low carbon emissions. What I'm saying is not an impossible project. It's not a far-sighted view. It's something actually very concrete. The collective capacity to produce renewable regions within the Mediterranean area has improved by 30% during the last period. What we need is to change our economic development system. This paradigm is something essential to give important steps ahead. There are a lot of complex situations to face. To face these situations, we need to adopt new multidisciplinary approaches. Economic cooperation is not enough. We need to be more awareness. Awareness must be raised among political decision makers. I would like to stress that our organization plays a fundamental role. The Parliamentary Assembly of the Mediterranean gathers 34 member countries. They are part of the so-called enlarged Mediterranean network. This assembly promotes the development of synergies between private and public sector, including decision makers and the scientific world. We base our actions on evidence and scientific proof. We really believe that this tool can be very effective from different point of view. This is not legally binding. We go behind the traditional diplomatic relationships. The assembly is important because we can promote and favor fruitful relationships beyond any national issue. The transition, we know, is determining important challenges, but what are the most important themes which go beyond the climate change, sustainability, and hotspot, a climate hotspot that we live in? We have seen what happened in Germany, something that is occurring very often in many other Mediterranean areas. So what are we doing from this point of view? We need to commit ourselves with new concrete actions. Communication plays a key role. The scientific community, parliament members, academic people, all these associations, groups need to talk to each other. The MEDREG is a Mediterranean Association of Energy Regulators, has worked on many projects, taking into account a new system to transfer energy and implement energy-based projects on a regional basis. Please let me say that from Rabat to Algeria, which are about 1,000 kilometers, to go from one point to the other side, you need 30 hours and you have to go through Paris. So it's impossible to live this way. We need to create a direct connection. And I really believe that the energy connection is the key aspect in this situation. So environmental protection and energy are the two pillars of the Mediterranean approach. From this point of view, our assembly is working on regional security with another university based here in Naples. Our Parliamentary Assembly of the Mediterranean also works in relationship with other operators in the Far East. A member of our association took place in a meeting organized by the Marshall Center. Ambassador Piazzi, on that occasion, stressed the importance of diplomacy, and he also stresses that the Parliamentary Assembly of the Mediterranean may really play a key role. Will be ready to talk about fossils, protection of sea environments, ecosystems. We aim to fight against environmental disasters. I've just mentioned what happened in Germany. The Parliamentary Assembly of the Mediterranean had a meeting in the Gulf area under the Italian presidency to talk about concrete tools and strategies. Prevention is a key term. For this reason, we as an assembly want to work to preserve our sea resources, implementing actions which are environmentally sustainable. It's clear that we are also talking about development and sustainability, not only about the environment. We as an assembly wanted to work to strengthen our relationship with the WEC, with United Nations, and many other organizations to monitor long-term actions. The 12th of July, we had the opportunity to take part in a COP26 meeting in Glasgow. We also organized an important event to study future institutional opportunities. I want to share with you that the pandemic has actually slowed down all processes. The lockdown has been really detrimental, but we are very positive for the future. We have heard very interesting words from the United States, and we are really positive. We basically need to adopt a green approach for the post-pandemic period. We should find new stakeholders, also from the private sector. The Parliamentary Assembly of the Mediterranean is looking for new partners, for new potential projects. In conclusion, we have a proposal, which is that one from our assembly. We think that we also need to work on development and green energies. And please let me say, as a conclusion, that in 2015, a decision made in Munich stressed the need to provide for a carbon tax. The carbon tax is today a key issue. It is part of the G20 agenda. This is why our proposal has been deeply studied to favor a possible development. I want to thank the WEC organizers. I want to thank for the opportunity that has been given to me and give the floor to the next speaker.
Adesso, prima di passare la parola a
President Migliore, before I leave the floor to Mr. Favero, who is going to introduce the next speakers.
Piovesana, di Confindustria, faccio un annuncio che ho dimenticato prima, una comunicazione di servizio.
Give a logistic information. As due to the pandemic, we cannot have a coffee break. So if you want to have a coffee here in Via Mezzocannone Road, you can have one, okay? You can have a coffee, and the bar has an agreement with us. So you just you just need to tell the bartender that you are from the WEC event. WEC event. We have a 30 minutes delay thanks to these beautiful interventions. So now I'm going to leave the floor to Mr. Favero. We are now going to anticipate the speech of Piovesana, of Mrs. Piovesana. Please, Matteo, just a few seconds so to recover this delay. Thank you very much for our international guests, and thanks to everybody joining this session. I would like to thank Mr. Migliori. When we decided to organize this event in Naples together with Marco and Paola, we thought that it was necessary because we needed to be here. Climate, environment, people, and prosperity. This is the title of the G20 of Naples. Well, this title has been chosen because we want to resume after the pandemic. We want to resume in a different way. We want to recover in a different way and not as we have done so far. So we want to start again with a new ecological transition that is people oriented. In our debate and in the events promoted by WEC, the most innovating aspects of energy and of circular economy are here. They are present. We wanted them to be here in Naples because they are the motor behind all our actions. And I would like to leave the floor to Mrs. Piovesana, the Vice President for Environment, Sustainability and Culture of Confindustria. So she is a leading representative of this engine of the ecological transition. Can you hear me? Welcome, Mrs. President. Thank you. You are virtually welcome in Naples. Well, to Naples, sorry, to Naples, sorry. Yes, I would have loved to be there with you, but I couldn't make it at the end. Thank you for this invitation. The topic that is being dealt with in this meeting is very important. I can hear myself. There is a rebound of my voice. So first of all, the title is Italy, the very heart of the European transition. I think that these topics like sustainability are paramount issues and we always need to focus on them. We cannot go without these terms and these topics.
Che questa fase storica di transizione ci sta offrendo, ovvero sia le imprese
So we
italiane.
have an historical opportunity. In fact, we know that Italian enterprises have dedicated very important investments to decarbonization and to circular economy. In fact, today we are acknowledged in terms of circular economy as the leading actors at a European scale. We are considered as leaders when it comes to using raw materials. You know, Italy has not raw materials, has not energy, and in fact, this our country needed to give proof of being a virtuous example, so not to waste anything. We have a terrible impasse, and as far as the circular economy is concerned, we needed to show that we managed, that we could carry out an ecological transition. When we talk about energy and the circular innovation, we cannot go without innovation, we cannot go without research, we cannot go without technological facilities that are always necessary. In terms of capacity, in terms of capabilities of our country, we know that we need to create a further room for possibilities. And we are very good at the efficient use of energy. So Italy as a system is a good example. We have room for improvement, and this was stressed by the fact that the ministry is no longer named Environment Ministry, rather Ministry for the Ecological Transition, because we realize that this transition is crucial today. In this transition, sustainability is the turning point. It is the key word. Sustainability has to do with environment. And if sustainability is not brought forward with the environmental issues, with society and with economics, then it doesn't make any sense. We need to recall the moment in which the Green New Deal was established in Europe. Europe has always been perceived as something very far away, as a distant entity, as a distant body. But with the Next Generation EU, the European Union has established new values and new principles. These are very challenging targets, and Italy has now further funds to spend. And nevertheless, after these efforts made by our economy, and after these funds provided by the European Union, we realized that today the regulatory framework at a European scale is more and more challenging. But I would rather say that it is not only challenging, it is also very concerning, very worrying. In fact, the Green Deal is now dividing our continent and our European Union. In fact, on one hand, Rome, and on the other hand, France, they are asking for modifications. And I'm making reference to the proposals package of the European Union, which is called Fit for 55, containing 13 law proposals, legislative proposals concerning climate, whose goal is helping the European Union reach the targets of reducing CO2 emissions by 50% by 2050. But these targets are going to impact the production of our countries in the European Union. We are talking about an ecological transition that has to be clear to everybody. And as we are talking about transition, we need to guarantee the right timing for this. In fact, if we are to ensure the legislative proposals contained in the Fit for 55, we would find ourselves and with our and we would find with our companies that always champion circular economies, that always champion circular economy in sustainability, well, we would find ourselves as out of the market. So Europe has to be frameworked in a global context. And if we take a look at our contribution in terms of global emissions, we have about 9%. 30% is the data related to Chinese greenhouse gases emissions. And then we have the United States with 20% more or less. Consider that China cannot be defined as an emerging, a developing country. We have other emerging and developing countries. And China is actually buying certain areas worldwide. So we cannot consider China as a developing country. And that's why we need to set clear rules that have to be shared at a global scale. Otherwise, the great risk, the great problem, the great danger for our country and for Europe is finding themselves out of the market because they would not understand the ongoing situation of their economies. So entrepreneurs target at social, environmental, and economic sustainability. So, in other words, this balance, this equilibrium is not an easy task, but at the same time, it is necessary. It is needed if we are to keep the pay, if we are to maintain and keep peace. And thanks to the European dream, thanks to the founding fathers of our union. If we want this to go on, if we want to be, if we want to see hope, if we want to develop our continent, we need to be ambitious. We need to aim at high targets, but at the same time, we need to make the right decisions, being aware of who we are and of our impact in terms of climate change. Italy represents the 1% in CO2 emissions. And as I was saying before, we have several industries that, in spite of being very energy consuming, they are also champions in terms of sustainability. Think about the steel industry. And the steel industry manufactures metals and steel of high quality. And as a paradox, we always import from abroad because sometimes what we have here is not enough. Other champions of circular economy is paper factories, paper mills, and other proofs of these is that we need to be very careful all the time. In fact, we need to remember that these champions of circle sustainability have to be preserved in the decarbonization process, because otherwise we would run a risk, which is decarbonizing the economy, but we would lose the leading role in terms of circular economy, which actually was born a lot of years ago. In fact, today everybody speaks about circular economy, everybody is aware of that. Uh, but when politicians were not interested in circular economy, actually entrepreneurs were already working in that sense, in that direction. So we need to remember who we are, and on the other hand, we need to help our country preserve and maintain these chains and these companies, which are very important from a strategic point of view. Think about cement and concrete factories. They are capable of performing the end-to-waste with the 6.8 tons of CO2 in terms of the carb. So we need to leverage on different aspects of decarbonization, and we have to maintain a balanced approach. When it comes to decarbonization, we need to talk about energy efficiency as well. We need to talk about new energies, new facilities, and so on and so forth. But we also need to safeguard the circular economy that we have been building. Sorry, Mrs. Piovesana, you have 2 minutes, okay? Okay, three things more. We need a very clear ruling. That's why the simplification decree law is more than welcomed. We need to increase our recycling capability, and we need to rise the number of facilities in our country. And we also need to favor a new market for second raw materials. And I will conclude by saying that we need to be to be careful. Maybe our operation ends up well in 2050, but the patient maybe will die, and the patient is the company, is the number of companies and of enterprises in our country. On one hand, we are hopefully we will do something good in terms of social, environmental, and economic sustainability, and that asset is a very strong one in Italy, and it is the industry.
Per l'intervento da remoto. Now I will switch in English a little bit because we have the last two international hosts. We have Huda Benjanet Talal, Director General of OIMI, and also Katie Gereta from EPRI, Electric Power Research Institute from the United States. Please stay in 5-7 minutes for your speeches. I will give the floor to Huda first. Please, Huda, and thank you for staying with us in Naples as in other occasions.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good afternoon. So first of all, thank you very much for Globe Italy and WEC for inviting us for this important and timely event. I'm very glad to be here in person and to participate. So I'll try to be very quick. I'll bring the energy situation and perspective in the Mediterranean region. Next slide, please. So first of all, for those who do not know us, just to who we are, the Observatoire OAMI stands for Observatoire Méditerranéen de l'Énergie. We are very old because we are celebrating 30 years of existence this year. This is a non-profit organization which gathers gathering the leading energy companies around the Mediterranean region. We are chaired by Eni for the time being, and so we are promoting regional dialogue, cooperation, organizing high-level events, and we do not work in isolation, and we have now a long-standing cooperation with WEC Italy. I'm very glad about that. Of course, a lot of things changed since 30 years, since the WME was brought to life, and we want also to restructuring that was decided to better integrate and reflect the current changes in the energy sector towards more integrated multi-technology energy systems, as well as to cope with energy transition challenges. 4 different committees were established looking at hydrocarbons, energy security, investment and financing, energy transition and strategy, and international cooperation. In this respect, we totally share the vision and approach of WEC in the energy trilemma, and we are also very pleased that the Mediterranean is given heightened attention in the policy dialogue. It is indeed very crucial, especially for the European Union external energy policy, and as a bridge between Europe and Africa, the Middle East and the Near East. We are glad to contribute to this enriching dialogue and networking event. Next slide. So my presentation today is somehow in continuation on what Irena presented on the global and what was presented by Pam, in order to share with you the latest publication we just issued on the energy situation. This is which we call Mediterranean Energy Perspective. This is the 7th edition since its first publication in 29. The map covers 26 countries of the Euro-Mediterranean region and presents energy supply and demand scenario up to 2050. The work also includes, this time, the impacts that the COVID pandemic had over the region in 2020 and 2021, and offers 3 scenarios: a baseline or business as usual scenario, a proactive scenario, and a near zero carbon scenario, which we call PROMET scenario, which was first developed in this edition of MEP as part of the work of the Union for the Mediterranean Energy Platforms with the support of the European Commission. For simplicity, only the reference scenario and the PROMET will be analyzed during my presentation. I will give you more details on the main assumption of the scenarios a little bit later. Next slide, please. So energy scenarios in the Mediterranean have to be looked at in an integrated way, as they are strictly interlinked to a series of sustainability issues encompassing demographic growth, macroeconomic trends, as well as the path towards energy transition. If we look at the projections for 2050, we see a quite strong and contrasting intra-regional trends. First, in the face of demographic decline in the north, there is an expected population increase of almost 150 million in the south, half of them in Egypt and Turkey. Also, economic trends predict an acceleration of wealth in the South Shore, whose GDP could represent more than 60% in the regional total into 2050. These indicators, exogenous to our model, have directly implication for regional energy trends in the next 3 decades. Actually, if we look at the expected evolution of energy demand in the north and in the south, we can clearly see that there is a considerable drop in energy demand in the countries of the north against a significant increase in the south region. These trends are obviously more marked in the business as usual trend or reference scenario, while in the near zero carbon or PROMET scenario presents less marked differences between the 2 regions. Indeed, the PROMET scenario assumes strong interventions in the field of energy efficiency and an impetus for clean energies in all sectors of activity, with the objective of achieving carbon neutrality in the member countries of the European Union by 2050 and in 2060 for the rest of the Mediterranean. This means that the growth in energy demand in the South Shore remains much more moderated compared to the reference scenario, 21% against 111%. All energy demand increase is expected then to occur in the south. Huge decrease in the north in the PROMET scenario and limited increase in the south. Regardless of the scenario, south energy demand will overtake that of the north by mid-30s. North demand has been decreasing since 2005 and will continue. Next, please. If we break down the energy demand indicator, we can better see that the energy transition is based on a significant reduction in fossil fuels, in particular coal, which will almost disappear by 2050, and oil, of which use is predominantly concentrated in transport sector, particularly in the south. The energy transition is therefore accelerating, and the positive effect of the new European Union strategies at Euro-Mediterranean level are affecting the demand for fossil fuels. Gas, nevertheless, remains important in the Mediterranean energy mix with 227 million TOE in 2050, even in ProMed, which, however, includes a fairly significant percentage of green gas. Next, please. To better analyze the implication of
2 minutes.
Wow. To better analyze the implication of an energy transition on greenhouse gas emissions, this graph relates to evolution of the energy mix to the CO2 trends projected in the north and south of the Mediterranean. As we can see, the evolution of CO2 emission is remarkable in the two regions. In the north, more than 700 million tons of CO2 would be saved over the period 2018-250 compared to reference scenario, while the cumulative saving in the south would amount to more than 1.2 billion euros. This is explained by a short reduction in the fossil fuels. In particular, coal would be almost wiped out in the northern Mediterranean, with the exception of the Balkan countries, and of course that it will be considerably reduced in the south. So next, please, I will jump. You will have more details in the slides. Another aspect which is very important for the Mediterranean is security, energy security. It is essential, beyond environmental and climatic consideration, the reduction of the region energy dependence, which has reached a fairly high level, 39% on average for the region, 58% for the northern part. So energy security is paramount, especially for the South Med countries, regardless if they are fossil fuel importers or producer. The implementation of the near zero carbon scenario would allow the region to become a net exporter as a whole and for the important countries to reduce drastically their dependence and producers to increase their revenues. Next, please. So as for the sustainable dimension, the acceleration of renewable energy technology deployment in the Mediterranean electricity mix will lead to important socio-economic benefits in terms of CO2 mitigation and job creation, among others. Renewables are expected to increase by 4 times in the Mediterranean all over the period in the ProMed scenario, with wind and solar PV representing the leading technologies in the region. Such deployment would, as we have already seen, lead to significant CO2 reduction, particularly accentuated in the North Mediterranean. Furthermore, it would require new technical skills in the renewable market to accompany such capacity growth, particularly relevant in the south. Renewable jobs increased from around 39,000 in 2010 to more than 72,000 estimated in 2019. Technology-wise, whereas hydropower employed around 90% of renewable jobs in 2010, this share has been reduced to only 50%, with solar gaining momentum, accounting for around 30% of total renewable jobs in 2019. Solar PV alone could account for about 59% of total jobs under both scenarios by 2050. From a value chain perspective, as more renewables are being deployed, the share of operation and maintenance jobs grow accordingly. Next slide, please. This is just to say that we need to invest, and here we have estimated the amount of investment that would be needed for both scenarios. And you can see, of course, that the ProMed scenario is more expensive. This represents 5% more investment.
Huda, may I propose to share the slides with all the hosts?
Absolutely. And, so I jump to the conclusion.
Thank you.
Last slide, please. So, to conclude, current policies will not be enough for the Mediterranean to curb sizably its energy demand and CO2 emissions, nor to ensure its energy dependency. In contrary, indeed, it is not only climate change that is at stake, but the energy dependence of the region and the strains it already currently poses to the region. Action is needed urgently. In this context, the European Green Deal represents a reference model, but only a Euro-Mediterranean Green Deal can instill the needed step change. Regional analysis is of utmost importance to identify win-win and adapted solution to successfully build a shared vision and achieve the goals in a more cost-effective way. As part of this win-win solution, dialogue and cooperation between policy and industry stakeholders is necessary to ensure a just and fair transition in both shores. The WEC Italy and Globe Italy event is a pertinent example and timely event in this sense. And based its establishment experience in the Mediterranean Regional Energy Dialogue, OME is willing to accompany this transition, which for the time being requires strong integration between the conventional and non-conventional energy sectors with high and realistic ambition to achieve a full energy transition. Thank you, and sorry for being long.
Thank you, Uda. I switch immediately to Katie, and we come back to the US perspective. Please, Katie, the floor is yours. Yeah, you have to.
There we go. Thank you. Sorry about that. So first, I'd like to thank WEC for inviting me here today to speak, and to thank all of you for being here today, and those of you virtually who have joined us. It's my pleasure to talk about the U.S., and what you've heard a lot of today is mostly about the goals and different paths. We focus on technology. And so when I heard that this is people, prosperity, and planet, I thought this very much is in line with EPRI's mission, where we help the power industry serve the public. And if the public is prosperous, then we can have a more peaceful and sustainable planet. And at EPRI, we collaborate with more than 400 organizations in over 40 countries. And what we do is we crowdsource ideas in order to accelerate innovation and deployment of technologies. Because what we heard today is the pace is going to be incredibly fast. We've heard some amazing and audacious goals. And then the scale of it is also going to be very large. And the need for innovation is stronger than ever. So I'll say that I'm an engineer, and so when I look at a complex problem, I think of it in terms of math problems. And so when we think about decarbonization, at EPRI we call it the decarbonization equation. And of course it's not just one, it's many. But what are the factors that matter? I'd say they are time, trajectory, and technology. So with time, in the US, they set a goal of economy-wide 50% economy-wide emission reduction compared to 2005 by 2030, and we heard that from David Livingstone today, and net zero by 2050, economy-wide. So with that time, where's the trajectory? Where are we going to go? Well, we're going to have to look at it in terms of various sectors, because the power sector can decarbonize completely, and yet we won't be able to reach it economy-wide unless other sectors partake as well, and that would be in transportation, buildings, and industry. So as we look at the different scenarios, as David mentioned earlier, the administration set a goal of about to have a pollution-free power sector by 2035. And so EPRI is looking at different scenarios where the power sector reduces carbon between 60% and 80% by 2030, because as our Huda just presented, scenarios help us with planning for the future. Next comes technology. And when we think about the technologies, there are 5 tools in our toolkit. So the first one is clean power. So how can we have cleaner power? That means more renewables, more advanced nuclear, and more natural gas with CCS. The second tool in the toolkit is energy efficiency. We've been doing energy efficiency for a long time. For example, LEDs dramatically changed the reduction in electricity use in buildings. So energy efficiency we will continue to do. Efficient electrification. So we want to think about total energy, not just when residents think of their energy bill, they often think of heat and electricity, but include fuel into that equation. And what we're finding that households in the US, if they own 1 electric car, they could save as much as, or 2 electric cars, they could save as much as $1,500 a year. So when we think about what we can do with electrification, we often talk today about equity and justice. This can help us achieve those goals as well, if we can broaden the use and adoption of electricity in different ways. But electricity is not going to be enough. There are just some areas that are not going to be able to be electrified. For example, in heavy transportation, steel industry, very cold areas where heating electrification can still be very expensive. So we're also looking at the fourth tool in our toolkit, which is low carbon resources. So let's take a look at what I'd say, I heard some folks say, is the root cause of the problem. Let's look at the early part of the value chain. So you've got supply, delivery, and end use. And let's start at the supply and see what we can do in the longer term. So what I've talked about so far has mostly been what we can do through 2030, and we will continue to do that. But when we start to look at 2050, we're really going to need to look at low carbon resources such as hydrogen, ammonia, biofuels, and what can we do to generate it so in a much less expensive way than we do today, store it and deliver it at a scale like we've never seen before. So we have a collaborative called the Low Carbon Resources Initiative that we are jointly led with the Gas Technology Institute. It's over $120 million to date for a 5-year program with more than 40 members so far. So I encourage you to talk to me at the gala later to find out more, and also about anything else that EPRI is doing, because partnerships are so important, and I'll underscore that at the end of my talk.
Katie, please, 2 minutes.
2 minutes?
Yes.
Okay. Good. I think I'll be right on schedule. So carbon capture is my fifth tool in the toolkit. And so carbon capture will cross-cut all of these areas because you can capture it at the source, capture it during delivery, and capture it during end use. Very, very important to get to net zero. We just don't think we can get there without it. And it has an added benefit where you can directly capture carbon from the air. So think about that too. There's lots of technologies that need to be on the table. So those are my 5. And so I leave this message with one size does not fit all. In the United States, we have 50 states. Different regions have different resources, different consumers, different needs. Same thing with the rest of the world and Europe and the country. So think about what you have locally and what you need to deliver, and then come up with the different options. Think of the different options that can help to get you there, because we're all in this together, and we're all trying to do it as quickly as possible. And so today I just would like to, again, thank WEC. We announced the partnership where we're proud to host the U.S., and also with IRENA, we announced today, too, an MOU to speed electrification. And I was very fortunate to talk to the Director General today. And so with that, I thank you very much, and I hope to see you at the gala. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Katie. Thank you for staying in time. Now I switch in Italian. Ora entriamo nei due panel.
Now we are going to discuss with the many panelists that we will help us understand what are the Italian companies doing in terms of energy and in terms of circular economy. Mr. Postiglione and Mr. Todini will moderate the 2 panels. So we want to beg your pardon for the delay. I will now leave the floor to Mr. Postiglione, and I would like to beg your pardon again. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. I think that it is deeply interesting. It is deeply interesting seeing that there are strange coincidences. Today, we are celebrating the G20 in Naples, the G20 on climate, and we are celebrating the 20th anniversary of the G8 in Genoa. We remember that back in that time, many people protested, asking for a more just economy, a more equal economy, an economy that bears in mind environment. So they wanted governments to recognize the importance of ensuring equality. So beyond these claims, we have read so many things about this, and we know that it is very interesting noticing that today a part of that speech, a part of those claims, maybe the less nihilistic part, has been deeply integrated from the mainstream economy point of view. In fact, Mrs. Piovesana has stressed the concept of environmental, social, and economic sustainability. In fact, all companies, all entrepreneurs, and all societies have been talking for several years about different targets, different goals. The Millennium Development Target goals, sorry, I make reference to Jeremy Rifkin or Marcia Sang when they mentioned the social balance, or the Italian Statistic Agency, but also the social balance is made by different companies worldwide. In a nutshell, former economy, the economy we were used to have back in the time of globalization when we experimented social fractures, we can frankly say that the new rise of populism in the past few years is connected, is due to the rage of the globalization losers. Well, now the mainstream economy is an economy that uses equality and fairness as central topics as central mechanisms. So environment is a way to put the to put intergenerational equality, distribution, and environmental protection at the center of the political debate. And also, we want to put at the center resources, thinking about the others, thinking about those who live in our surroundings. So we are going to be talking about society, economy, and environment, and the way these three pillars interact in this virtuous environment. And we are going to be talking together with Andrea Ciommi, the head of international relations in the CNH Industrial, and then Simone Nisi, the head of institutional affairs of Edison, Fabrizio Pirri, Center Coordinator for Sustainable Future Technologies, and Fabrizio Iaccarino, the head of sustainability and institutional affairs at Enel, Alessandro Sabatini, the head of domestic affairs at Eni, Guido Guida, head of international institutional affairs at Terna, Domenico Maggi, head of European affairs and public affairs for energy transition, and also Francesco Balestrino, renewable and green technologies product manager at Saipem Excite. Well, I was asked to leave the floor immediately to Mr. Pirri. So, Mr. Pirri, you have these insights. Please inspire us and do it quickly because we are late already. I will then ask a question to all the panelists. We would like to know from you what kind of model should we aim at to create a connection between the humankind and the environment. The United States want to do that, and Mr. Barendorf 20 years ago mentioned the European social model as an inclusive model, a competitive one with the social inclusion as the leading pillar. So Europe has always been criticized, but I think that Europe did many positive things apart from Brexit. Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for the invitation. I had some slides with me, but I will just show you one of them. Not this one, the next one, please. This is the only slide I'm going to use for my speech.
Vabbè, se non c'è non importa, lo descriverò. Allora, nel lucido...
So, in this slide, well, actually, we can't see the slide yet, but in the slide I had prepared, I had put several things and several figures because I am an engineer and I love numbers. So by these numbers, you could have understood that global problems need technological solutions. 7.5 billion people is the figure related to the world citizens. It is impossible that world resources are sufficient, are enough, so to allow everybody to live with the same standards of life. So we cannot leave anyone behind. This is our must, but we have been leaving many people behind so far. 16 terawatts per year. This is the world energy need. Europe consumes 16% of that, so we are like a small continent. CO2 emissions per year is 36 gigatons. Europe emits 10%, Italy 1%, Germany 2%, the US 5.2 gigatons. So around 20%, and China 25%. Japan 1 gigaton, so around 3%. Waste generated worldwide is 4 billion tons per year. 33 million of waste generated by Italy. So if we compare this figure to 4 billions, it is a small number. 225 million tons of waste is the amount of waste generated by the US. 300 million per year is the figure related to plastic, and 60 million tons is related to electronics. So these are some figures just to just to give you an idea. In 2019, Italy burned 74 billion square meter of methane. This means that only Italy, as a consequence of burning methane, Italy emitted that amount of emissions. In 2019, Italy generated the 37% of the permitted energy quotas through photovoltaic panels, through solar panels. So as it has been said, Italy is on the right path, and the Mission Innovation Table, which I participate in, has one mission, which is reaching the 100% of electric power in the grid by 2050. So these are some of the technological problems that are clustered in 4 groups. So you can see these 4 images, these 4 technological images. I particularly care about them because the Italian Institute for Technology has invested a lot in terms of research. So in the first image, you see hydrogen. We want to make the world energy system capable of producing alternative energies, renewable sources of energies, and hydrogen is the key. If we want to opt for green energy, then we want to create sustainable ways to take advantage of electric power, and then creating intelligent systems for electric storage. The world electric systems with the presence of hydrogen. We know that hydrogen is manufactured in huge quantities, and it is now stored where methane is stored. So we have been converting the methane storage systems to store hydrogen. CO2 can be reduced, diminishing combustion, but it cannot be cancelled in a quick way. In fact, we are going to need CO2 elimination in the next 60 years. So we need to create value for those emissions. We need to remember the way we use fossil fuels. We know that we need to convert the usage of carbon from fossil to CO2 reconversion. Bioeconomy, it has been assessed that bioeconomy can generate at least 200 billion euros per year and 20 million jobs in Europe. Economists have assessed that 200 billion euros can be generated in terms of the manual production system and many jobs. So this means that we can recover waste in terms of using microbic and very small companies with zero cost, like alternative energies. Well, and we could recover and create energy out of those wastes. So the conclusion is that technology is moving forward, and it is moving in the direction of research and also in the direction of new solutions, finding new possibilities for new markets. So scientists are work a lot. It would be amazing if economists would do the same, shaping a new economic system that currently hasn't clear models, clear patterns. So the legislation should be readjusted to a massive introduction of a profitable production system, thanks to an empathic technology on the environment, so allowing the 7 billion people on Earth to live with the same standards we have. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Pirri, Professor Pirri. I will now ask Mr. Balestrino from SAIPEM to intervene, and I will just make a round of questions. So one question each. Okay. One question for each of you. SAIPEM has moved from the sector oil and gas, and now they are very active on ecological transition. So please, Mr. Balestrino, could you help us understand what SAIPEM is doing in terms of policies and what contributions can be made by companies and by enterprises. Thank you for the invitation. I am glad of telling you what SAIPEM is doing in terms of energy production. Today, one of the keywords for SAIPEM is innovation. This is a basic concept. This is a paramount concept if we want to make the use of energy sustainable. Obviously, Italy shouldn't envy the northern countries, Northern Europe countries, because we know that they are leading the renewable sources use. And actually, we lag a bit behind, but we know that even if we don't have so many raw materials, we have great advantages. And in fact, technological innovation is paramount if we want to move to a more sustainable standard. SAIPEM wants to start from the territory. We want to start out from our local aspect, from our local dimension, so finding new solutions that are easily combined with the characteristics of our land. We have ongoing projects in Italy. Many of them have been presented and explained at an international scale. In fact, we wanted to take advantage of the funds allocated by the PNR, the National Plan for Resilience and Recovery. In Ravenna, we managed to create an agreement between local and international stakeholders. We called this project the Energy Hub because it combines different energies, and this hub manages to take advantage of solar power and wind power. Renewable energy generated by these sources is used to manufacture hydrogen both at sea and in the land. This is a completely new and innovating solution because on one hand we can exploit the force of the sea, and also a subproduct of electrolysis, which is oxygen, which is used to increase the oxygenation of the surrounding environment, which is a plus for animal species and plant species seaweed living in the sea. So this is a good example of renewable sources and of sustainable energies. We are also developing new projects in Venice using innovating solutions and technologies that are easily combined with the needs of the territory. Thank you very much. Very good. We are now going to leave the floor to Enel representative, Mr. Iaccarino. We know that Enel has a sustainability balance which is at the vanguard. You are in line, you follow your vision, your view, you are inspired by the creation of shared value. I would like to delve into your activities and I would like to know from you what you're doing in terms of electrification of final consumption. A very important issue if you want to aim at zero impact society. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much. Okay, here we have two keywords in our strategy, sustainability on one hand and electrification on the other. These both terms are in line with innovation, obviously, are very related to innovation. So we are working to create a better world, a more sustainable world with an energy production that is in line with a more sustainable practice. We also want to respond to economic and social matters and questions and problems. We need to face an economic transition and an ecological one, which is not an easy task. It is a complex thing. We need to replace technologies. We need to work with a new know-how, with new principles. So social, environmental, and economic sustainability is a paramount issue. In fact, throughout our history, we have always tried to decarbonize the energy mix of our group worldwide. We have always tried to support networks, grids, their digitalization and electrification. We have always tried to make electrification possible. Well, by trying all these things, we have always known that any industrial plan has to be in line with the SDGs. And if it is in line with SDGs, then they will create value for shareholders and they will create win-win mechanisms that will be never stopped. Electrification is paramount for Enel. We want to use as much electric power as possible in terms of heat pumps and green ports, because all these things will create a direct environmental advantage. Obviously, we want to create a differentiated energy mix. We want to shut down our carbon plants, and we want to do that by 2027. It is not an easy task. The challenge is going to be hard. I was talking to a colleague before. I have started to work. I have started to work in Enel, dealing with nuclear power, then with gas, then with renewable sources. I've been dealing with. I've always been dealing with the new challenges. And when I was working with nuclear power, I wouldn't have expected that dealing with renewable sources would have been so complex. We knew that you just needed one or two reactors if we wanted to manufacture nuclear power. But here, with renewable sources, everything is more difficult. In fact, all the territory has to be included. We need to reflect on how things are going. We need to engage everybody else. We need to raise debates, technical debates with experts. And we need to understand that all these things can be faced only through sustainability. If we really want to win this challenge, we need to create a better future focused on every human being. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Iaccarino from Ellen. Now I'm going to address Alessandro Sabatini from Eni. He is the responsible for domestic affairs and institutional affairs at Eni. Please say something on these panels topics, but please also tell us about OpenS, which is an important initiative that shows that good practices create positive circles, positive spirals. This is a platform which has been designed only for any suppliers, and now it has become a system, a tool to measure environmental factors. So please, Mr. Sabini, the floor is yours. OpenS has been launched 4 months ago. This initiative wants to welcome every company. So every company is welcome here. The principle, the goal is guiding the industrial ecosystem towards sustainability. Very often, this world is made of SMEs, and we need new standards to deal with sustainability, and these standards are stricter and stricter. They are becoming stricter and stricter. Eni has a very developed expertise, and we decided to make it available for any supplier and for any company. This platform, OpenS, is a digital platform that allows every small and medium enterprise to create, by answering certain issues and questions that are gradually becoming more and more difficult, their sustainability report. This gives our suppliers the possibility to create their own path, their own culture in terms of SDGs. So it is a very tangible example of the way how great companies can guide the industrial ecosystem towards a growing sustainability, a further sustainability. Mr. Sabini, thank you very much, and please forgive me for mispronouncing your name, your surname. So now I will ask a question to the representative of Edison, Mr. Simone Nisi, Head of Institutional Affairs. You have created in your company the SDG at Edison, your thoughts community, a panel that was launched in 2018 to dialogue with representatives from institutions, companies, and the third sector. So it is evident that your company has been in line with the virtues of a new economy for different stakeholders. So please, Mr. Nisi, tell us the right policies we should adopt, we should implement. Tell us what decision makers should do to create a bottom-up process, because you, as a civil society actor, have always acted as a bottom-up actor. So what are the policies for for the right energy transition? Thank you. I'm very grateful and happy. I I'm here in Naples. I'm back in Naples again. I love this, and I see so many students here. In fact, the main target of these talks are students. So I started to work in this sector in 2008, but the world has changed so much in these last years. The whole context, the whole framework has changed. We have a further urgency now. We have to act as soon as possible. We know that we need to take measures, and in Naples, we are now witnessing the importance of the debate between the richest countries worldwide. So we are here to accompany young generations towards the future. Our goal is to represent the efforts made every energy stakeholder. I am a representative of Edison. You made a reference to the stakeholders panel of 2018. Actually, we have written a very long history so far, In fact, we have developed in different territories, and we have invested in one of the main principles in our way of working. So the first electric power facility in the River Adda was built by us several years ago, and it is still there, and it is very efficient. So we are now designing a new path, a new trajectory for decarbonization by 2030 and 2050. We want to reach the net zero, and we want to reduce CO2 emissions, bearing in mind and acting on four axes: electric power generation, transportation, great production, great industry, and great real estate portfolios. So these are the four biggest investment dimensions and levels we should be focused on. You made a reference to policies. Well, policies should be addressed to these four investment areas. A lot has been done thanks to the recently approved European funds, for example, the Italian Fund for Resilience and Recovery. A lot has been done with further European funds. And today we know that the most pressing issue, as Mr. Pirri said before, is related to the regulatory and legislative framework in which an entrepreneur has to manage their activity. So we need to be focused on policies. A lot has been done, but we still have a long way to go. We still have a long way to go, and in the next few years, every energy stakeholder and operator will need to contribute to design a better national future, and will need to reflect on the geopolitical areas, especially Europe and the Mediterranean area, to export and share the experiences we have made here.
Andrea Ciommi, responsabile relazioni internazionali.
Andrea Ciommi, Head of International Relations Europe, Middle East, Africa, and Asia Pacific. I would like to ask you how these projects may be combined in relation to different sectors, including sustainable farming, sustainable agriculture. You have also been involved with your task force. So I see that your task force is really interesting. So how can we improve national policy?
Buonasera a tutti. Sì, noi a differenza degli altri attori a questo tavolo siamo...
Thank you very much for your questions. Let's say that we are a different company. We are not part of the energy sector. We work with commercial vehicles, 4.0 farming. So we are almost the end user in this whole energy chain. We are one of the main world players in this instrumental goods field. Our green roadmap want to answer to the mega trends and challenges we have to face basically today. Challenges regard sustainable development, prosperity, and prosperity is one of the words included in the title of this panel. We are about to answer and give an answer, a concrete answer to some of these challenges with alternative, optional fuels. Technology is a key element in this perspective. We are using all things that we can to reduce emissions in our vehicles. So we want to introduce a green fuel, and we also are pioneering the green gas. We are a reference company, actually. in a few years, by 2024, 2025, we'll have the first hydrogen fuel cell trucks. So we are totally future oriented. As far as the agriculture is concerned, this is another field regarding the global food security. We are working on digitalization, on precision machinery, because we want to improve productivity, reducing waste. As you have said, we are working on a 4.0 farming, which is precision farming, precision agriculture. So how do we connect with the ecology, with green energies? Because, you know, companies have to contribute, but we also need proactive action involving the industry. We have different industry partners. We need to be very ambitious, and the decision makers are key people in this industrial ecosystem. We need rules, regulations, which can support this evolution that we are called to face. So it's very important to adopt public policies through which we may implement sustainability. We need full recharging stations. We need specific energy recharging systems. The G20 countries in October will present the key priorities and recommendations for sustainable development. So we need widespread action. We need to act all united, the private and the public sector all together. And the role of the public decision makers is actually very important for the corporate world. Actually, we need to contribute, but we need to work together jointly for a prompt, unique answer to these challenges. Thank you. Thank you very much to this contribution. We have Simone Nisi from Edison, Head of Institutional Affairs. I know that your company has new objectives, new challenges, a new roadmap, and I would like to know a little bit more about the transfer system operations project, which is very interesting for consumption. Thank you for the opportunity, for inviting me to this conference. Our development plan has been recently launched. It was launched 2 weeks ago in presence of Minister Cingolani and the President of BRERA. We have decided to implement this plan with different objectives. This industrial plan wants to be a leader in the energy transition through the implementation of electric infrastructures. We hope to integrate renewables with other alternatives. We want to work to transport renewables. You know that the most of consumption are in the northern regions, but renewable energies are in the south of Italy. So we need to create networks and proper systems. We need the infrastructure, as we have repeated many times. Our plan is an aggressive action. We are talking about 18 billions. Actually, I need to explain that this is not a real plan. It's a set of rules, sort of guidelines, which define different steps. So we have 18 billions 4 billion more than the previous year. It's very important because this has generated a great impact on our economy. Every single euro spent in the infrastructure may determine a great improvement in the national ranking. We want to see the future clearly, but when we talk about electric infrastructure, we have to know that we need time, we need to plan to introduce all the necessary changes. We have heard the simplification, the necessity to simplify our system. So we need to plan and organize this new system as expected, within the expected times. We have produced this guideline, this series of guidelines, taking into account the standards and the objectives established by the European Union. We need to integrate all these renewables. Today, we have the photovoltaic energy, the wind energy. We are able to produce 33,000 megawatts. But if we want to improve, according to the European guidelines, we need to reach at least 70,000 megawatts of renewables. This means that we have to create new networks, new systems, a perfectly built up network. Our structure should be more and more efficient. We have seen what happened in Germany last week in Germany, Holland, Belgium. So we need a resilient system. Resilience is a word expressing the need to detect risks and avoid any dangerous situation. This requires us to restore our systems. So we need systems that can be resilient, resistant. We need a safe and secure system, and the quality of services is to be improved. This requires us to respect all parameters. We need tools that make it possible to manage the electric system as better as possible. On the other side, we need to improve transportation through a major relationship with bordering countries. We are creating interconnections, so we expect to have more. This interconnection will improve a safer system, a more adequate system. Our objective is to do so that Italy, due to its position, can turn into a hub. So we do not only need to improve the infrastructure, to improve the connection between the south and the north of Italy, but we need to improve the connection within the Mediterranean area as a whole unit. We have heard before the importance to connect Italy to the northern shore of Africa, the Mediterranean shore of Africa. So, are there any benefits? Yes, there are. Consider that the main benefit is 5.6 millions of tons of carbons. We have to look at the environment. It's very demanding, we know that, but we have great opportunities. I also want to mention our collaboration with the TSO. We have presented last July, we have presented a study made with some important European companies. Italy, Terna, works with all the other energy managers, transmission energy operators, transmission system operators. This is the meaning of TSO. So we are all on the same ship. We are working all together as TSOs. We know that all the countries need to improve. There are different infrastructures, different types of energies, nuclear energies, renewables, and all the others. But we share all the same challenges, and we are strictly committed to improving industrial cooperation. TSOs are the leaders, are a guidance to this energy transition. When we talk about the footprint reduction, people say that you need to reduce losses, you have to reduce emissions, climate altering gases. It's not correct because our role is deeper. We are also responsible for electrification, for instance. It's really essential to stress this point also from a financial point of view. Analysts are looking at the transmission system operators. We know that we need to broaden our view. It's very important also for the sustainable finance. We have tried to stress the role of the TSOs. Let me mention a platform we have developed. EquiG is a platform that aims at creating an exchange of energy. So we really need standard platforms to obtain, to reach proper flexible systems. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to Mr. Guidis. So from one network to another one. Let's give the floor to Mr. Maggi, Domenico Maggi, Head of European Affairs and Public Affairs for Energy Transition from the SNAM. People say that the future of humanity is in the hands of gas pipelines companies. So pipelines connections of this type are very important to go beyond traditional borders. And I really like to go from one network to another one. SNAM as a company has an important decarbonization goal. You expect to reach this objective 10 years before then 2050. Yes, correct. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I take this opportunity to summarize what we have discussed during this panel. We have to understand what a future transition system operator is. We are a manager of pipelines. We have 32,000 kilometers of methane pipelines, one of the main players in Europe. We manage 20 billion cubic meters of gas stocked to be used. So what's about our role? Our role looks at zero emissions. Here, around this table, in addition to us, if you read the acronyms, you may perceive who the main players of the future system will be. Sector coupling, which is the cooperation between integration sector and electrification. Here we have Iveco. Maybe we have other important companies that really contribute to this. SNAM is working to this. SNAM is imagining the future. We hope not to transport a fossil molecule any longer, but a green molecule. A molecule obtained from green products. This is the orientation of our corporate plan. So we want to adapt to this future green molecule for green biomethane. We have different plans which will be supported by the Italian recovery plan, which has been recently approved. This is briefly what I wanted to share with you to make you understand what's our view. We are operating with many European companies. We are about 22 operators working in the hydrogen sector, for instance. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for being very quick. I thank you all the speakers of this panel. You have demonstrated what Ronald Reagan said. Don't tell me what I can do for you, but ask me what you can do for America. So these companies have not asked anything. They're just expressing what you're doing today for the country and for ecology. Thank you. Thank you for taking part in this panel. I give the floor to next moderator, Gianni Todini, Deputy Director of ASCA News.
So I now leave the floor to the Deputy Director of ASCA News. Have a fruitful meeting. Thank you very much.
Buongiorno a tutti.
Good afternoon, good evening. I think I will just sit here because there will be room for everybody. I will now call Chiara Praga, Valeria Fritelloni, Michele Rasera, Carlo Montalbetti, Paolo Barberi, and the President Luca Ruini. And as soon as they will join me on the stage, we are going to resume. Please take your seat. If there is not room for everybody, I will just leave the place.
Sì, va bene. No, ma a me questo... Ci accomodiamo e poi posizioniamo i cavalieri. Prego. Ci siamo tutti? Forse poi... Ok. Manca una sedia qui. Prego, si accomodi.
Allora, we still need a chair here. Thank you. Let's not spare your time. And, well, as you listen from my accent, I could say I will switch to Roman dialect because I'm from Rome. So it is quite late. We have a delay. But jokes aside, the context here is very important, and I will just say a few sentences. First of all, I am honored of being here at Federico II University because this university represents something huge, not only for the city of Naples, but also for the international culture. The international cultural world. I would like to thank all the international guests because we had a chance to listen to prominent speakers and very important interpretations and considerations in a high-level context. In fact, this is a side event of the G20 environment and climate. I had the chance to see again many people, like Mr. LaCamera. The Paris Agreement of COP21 was recalled. The Italian delegation did a wonderful job back in that time in those negotiations, and Mr. LaCamera really made many efforts in such a difficult agreement. I would like to start this new panel, Italy at the heart of the European transition, a right and a sustainable transition. Some concepts, some ideas have been anticipated by Mrs. Piovesana, Maria Cristina Piovesana, so we had the possibility to understand and to delve into what entrepreneurs are doing in terms of circular economy, especially as far as rules and legislations are concerned. So as a first option, we have a message from the Undersecretary of State, Vanya Gava, at the Ministry of for Ecological Transition. Let's now listen to this message. Okay, we cannot listen to the audio message. I'm sorry. Translation will not be provided because the audio is not coming, is not arriving. I'm sorry.
Si è bloccato?
Okay, again, translation can't be provided because we cannot listen to the original sound, the original audio.
Allora, grazie. Diciamo questo grazie virtuale al sottosegretario Gava che ci
So
dà.
a virtual thanks for the Undersecretary Gava. She wished us a fruitful meeting and she asked us to work as a team. And this is what I will ask my panel, the panel I am a moderator of. So please work as a team and try not to extend too much, try not to talk too long, okay? Because we are late and this is a long day, a long afternoon. So I'm going to I'm going to say something very straight, very straightforward. There is no transition if we don't make our economy circular. You are protagonists of this turning point from the point of view of production, from the point of view of consumption, and from the point of view of legislations and of a paradigm change, a paradigm switch at an economic and at a social level. So from this standpoint, Italy has always performed very well. Our figures are positive, they are promising numbers, and we are leaders in our continent under different conditions and from different standpoints. And you are going to represent and to demonstrate it. So when we talk about circular economy, the reference, the international reference is Europe. We have been relaunching and with a new roadmap and with the new performing actions. And we have also understood that we need to grow, we need to develop, and we need to grow as a country. Circular economy is one of the main tools in order to grow, in order to develop our economy. I think that everyone is with me on that. So please, Mrs. Fritelloni, the responsible of at ISPRA for the waste circular economy. Mrs. Fritelloni, as far as the National Plan for Recovery and Resilience, what do we have if we want to play this card we have, if we want to use this option of circular economy? Now circular economy has to be translated in a proper legislation to be leaders at a European scale. Okay, thank you. Thank you for your question. I would like to thank very quickly our guests and the organizers of this meeting. This question is fundamental. Everything has to start, everything has to be done as a team, okay? We need to act as a group and we need to understand what our weaknesses are. Italy has weaknesses, okay, that's clear to everybody. We need to understand in what Italy is weak. You have been telling us all the achievements of our country. That's right. Italy has been doing several positive things, and as far as circular economy is concerned, Italy is among the best ones in Europe. Germany ranks first, we rank second, okay? But small countries are performing better than us. They don't have the same characteristics we have, and they are beating us actually. So we lag behind in some areas. In fact, I have to say that the attempt of the National Plan for Recovery and Resilience was trying to impact those chains in which we lag behind, or at least those chains, those areas in which at the national level, we have the the biggest gaps. Okay, so we are a land of excellence, but so many times, very often, in our in annual reports, we proceed at different speeds. Okay, so in the northern part of the country, we are in line the with Germany and with the northern countries, but in southern Italy, we are lacking a lot of things. So the waste side, on the waste side, we have many excellencies, but on other sides, we have we have many problems. For example, In terms of vehicle, we lag in terms of vehicle, we lag behind. In terms of electronic devices, we lag behind, and we are not performing at the levels we should be performing at. So we don't have an efficient management in several areas. Together with President Luini, we have been presenting some weeks ago the annual report of the packaging sector, but packaging is not everything. We have other areas in which we have to improve. Plastic is lagging behind. We still have to do a lot of things concerning plastic. So what is the national plan for recovery and resilience giving us? Well, we need to design projects in these chains. So the second mission of circular economy is dedicated and focused on great cities. I'm not saying anything new. This is known to everybody. I am from Rome, like the majority of people in this panel, and in Rome we are experimenting several problems. For example, the PNR is focused on metropolitan areas. So we need to bridge so many gaps in Rome and in Milan and in other metropolitan cities. We have this unique occasion, this unique opportunity. The pandemic actually gave us this unique opportunity and we cannot miss it. We have specific flagships on certain chains and certain areas like plastic, and these are the chains and the areas in which we have to be more impacting, sorry. And then we have some proposals, some legislations that should go hand in hand with these projects. We have the national plan, the national agenda, the new national agenda for waste management, and also the intervention on environmental criteria, the minimum ones, the ones that should set the new market for first and second raw materials, as Mrs. Piovesana was asking for in her speech. So we have everything we need. We have money, we have funds. Now we need to create the right team. We need to make up the right team. So everything is there. We have everything we need. We need the right players. Okay, you are right. That's why I will ask Chiara Braga to make her speech now. She is the responsible for ecological transition, and she the head of the group at the Eco Mafia group, studying group. Okay, so Europe is asking us a lot. We have a good position, and we should not be scared of our future missions. The previous speaker has reminded us what we can do with our national plan for resilience and recovery. We always listen now several times to the word obstacle. There are obstacles, there are barriers. We know that there are difficulties in our path, and Mr. Migliori has reminded us that all these things are now in our agendas, in our political agendas. But what are these obstacles? What are these barriers? What should the parliament do in this direction? Thank you. Thank you. I would like to thank WEC and Globe for the invitation. I would like to greet all the speakers. I would like to thank Mrs. Frittelloni because she facilitated she facilitated my speech because she had already anticipated some information regarding the ongoing situation in Italy. We knew while we were here, we got to know that the G20 has reached an agreement, and we are looking forward to know from Minister Cingolani what decision has been made regarding the most central issues. Circular economy was the matter of the first G20 session, and I think that this is a very good sign, a very positive signal related to the smart and efficient use of resources, and the possibility we have to channel all these efforts in the right direction. This means that we need to take advantage of our strength and to bridge our gaps. We know that we have a lack of raw materials. That's why we need to enrich and to improve the matter recovery. As far as Italy is concerned, and as far as legislation and legislators are concerned, we know that we are very strong in some lines, in some areas. Some law proposals are arriving from the European Commission in form of this Fit for 55, this global package, and it is going to ask many efforts. It is going to ask us many efforts in the coming years in order to understand how these proposals will become legally binding. We know that these challenges are very peculiar, and we have to accompany our players in an attentive way. Some years ago, the Parliament has received further directives regarding the circular economy package, and we need to do a lot. We still have a long way to go with those decrees, starting from the National Plan for Waste Management. We are now coming to the deadline. We need to respect the target of and the deadline of 18 months, and we need to bridge those gaps in those territories in which of which Mrs. Fritelloni has been talking about. Actually, they are a sort of break, they are a sort of barrier to the whole national development. I've been debating on the simplification debate at the low chamber, at the Italian Parliament, and about indoor waste, we should increase and we should accelerate as far as the legislation is concerned, and also as far as improvement of processes is concerned. We are now processing new laws. Hopefully, they will be approved very soon by the Ministry of Ecological Transition. I hope these new decrees and this new law will create the right conditions, because very often circular economy actors find many barriers, and these barriers hinder them from carrying out their projects, their development projects. That's why I would like to stress the fact that the efficiency of the authorization process and public administration and public controls and supervision is a critical point. And we often debate that. We often debate on that with the operators that are here today. We don't want to create barriers. We don't want to prevent anyone from reaching their goals, but we need to optimize the system of authorizations and controls to provide and to ensure that a real circular economy is reached, and that these processes are not hindered by bureaucracy, red tape, because bureaucracy and red tape always are a burden and a breaking factor, a breaking agent for our economy. So please remember that this is a very important stake. Dialoguing and exchanging opinions is paramount, and also modifying and updating the rule and the legislation is crucial, especially dialoguing with circular economy operators in our country, because they represent a very important share, a very important reality in our country. Thank you very much. These have been the two first speeches. They have been very, very quick. Thank you for keeping the time you were assigned. We have been shedding light on the legislation side, but we would like to know more from companies that are working in ecological transition and that have to comply with different rules like a plastic tax, the sugar tax. So these are just two options, and I would like to ask Mr. Perini to join us. He is a Public Affairs and Communication Director at Coca-Cola, and he is also the president of ASSOBIB. So, Mr. Pierini, yes, we can see you and listen also. We can hear you. So, we are going to present this new issue now, which is companies in the new world of ecological transition. Coca-Cola has always been a very visible company in terms of focus on sustainability. Some issues at stake have to be assessed if we want to achieve this right transition at a European level, if we want to ensure the right sustainability we are aiming at. So here at the G20 Naples, the world leaders are trying to achieve this goal. The path is the one we have embarked upon several years ago. Please, thank you very much. I'm quarantined and because I have been in contact with a person with COVID. So this is a paramount issue. Ecological transition means that uh, we need to create and to launch a new form, a new shape of economy from different standpoints. Companies need to find a way to schedule and to invest, because any sort of investment in the short and in the long run cannot go without environmental sustainability. So Coca-Cola has been drafting a sustainability report every year. This means that in the last 17 years, we have made every investment public and transparent. And this is what every company is doing in terms of data, in terms of quantitative issues and qualitative issues related to their investments. The main goal for us, the main challenge we have is contributing in terms of packaging to circular economy. As a company that puts in the market, that trades in the market millions and millions of tons of plastic and aluminum, well, we need to make sure that everything we put in the market is recyclable, and that material has to come back to us in form of circular economy. In fact, we need to recall that each of us has a role to play. Companies have a role to play as far as packaging planification is concerned. In fact, packaging has to be as least as possible because packaging also ensures the food safety of the products they involve. They wrap, sorry, and we need to use recycled material as far as possible. But also consumers need to play the role. They have to waste. They need to sort their waste properly, and there have to be selection and recycling plant. The materials have to be selected, and they have to be made available for the market. So the next speaker is going to clarify on that. To clarify that. Mr. Ruini will explain that. And what the main question is, what is going on in 2025 and 2030? Because the targets set by the European Union are very strict and they are not an easy task. We need to work with recycled material, with recycled PET, but it is very difficult because in Italy we don't have a chain dedicated to this recycled PET. So if you are not good enough, then some other European operators will buy the recycled PET from other sellers worldwide. That's why we need to be proactive and very, very prompt. Every sector, the textile sector and the pharmaceutical one, is requiring this recycled PET. But the main challenge for us, the ongoing channel for everybody, is finding solutions that allow us to have recycled materials. Unfortunately, we have been talking in the wrong terms about circular economy. We have witnessed many campaigns, many plastic-free campaigns. Different municipalities decided to put a plastic ban. Actually, plastic is a sustainable material if you don't throw it away in rivers or in lakes or in the countryside. So these plastic-free campaigns were made, making a reference to the disposable plastic directive of the European Union. Obviously, carrying out this battle like this doesn't make any sense. If we want to battle, if we want to fight against something, we need to do it not from an ideological standpoint, rather using information, using data, and being informed, because this is a complex issue, okay? And these factors have to be faced with accuracy. As a company, we invested 100 million euros to be more sustainable, and a huge part of this money ended up in our production facilities and in the material we use to package our products with recyclable PET and so on and so forth. My goal is to sit at the table with our counterparts. We need to leave behind. We need to leave our ideology, our ideas, our romanticism behind, because ideology has nothing to do with the solution of of our problems. Ideology has no immediate effect on the result we want to achieve. Plastic can be used in some contexts and can't be used in others, okay? So it is very useful to understand where we can work with plastic and where we can't. So my goal as a representative of Coca-Cola and as a representative and president of Assobib is shedding lights on the many problems experimented by the Italian average investor and entrepreneur. Our goal is to find practical solutions, tangible solutions, and creating jobs, because actually we are witnessing and we are waiting for a new world. Yes, up to some month ago, Italy was the only country in Europe with a limit on recycled material. So companies have responsibilities, they have to invest, they have to play their role, and we are there. We want to do this all together. We are in this all together, and only as a group we will make the right decisions for the environment, not not undermining companies and industries. We need to rely on data, and that's the way we need to work. Okay, I'm sorry if I'm not there with you.
Thank you very much. Your contribution has been heard with great attention. Your message has been clear and loud. You have mentioned figures which are actually very important. I have to say that they are of paramount importance. And when you present the best offer ever, you obviously have to consider different parameters. Here we have one of the best Italian companies, Contarina, who's represented by Mr. Rasera. Contarina is leading experience, is a company that is present worldwide, and I'm very curious to hear the experience of this company. I want to take the opportunity to say that I perfectly know this company because I visited them recently, and what they do there is very fascinating. Thank you. Thank you for your compliments. Thank you very much for the citizens of the 49 municipalities that actually are the owners of Contarina SPA. Thank you very much for inviting me to this interesting conference. Contarina is a company that has adopted a door-to-door waste collection system. Here we see the numbers that refer to the experience of this territory in the northeast of Italy. This is a very competitive company. We are not considering ourselves as an industry, but we look at the circular economy. We consider circular economy a key aspect of our economy. We are completely interested in creating circular movements. We want to start a process and reach the end, creating a circle. Today, a circular economy is giving us a great opportunity. Through this economy, we may understand how to expand our experiences and reach industrial levels. So we have the only world plant that is working with one of the most difficult products to recycle. We work with the diaper recycling process, and we do this process in collaboration with some of the main makers of nappies, diapers. We have a great responsibility in this transition. We look at the products, at the waste, but without considering them as real waste, rather than as something to reuse, to recycle. Is a very important change from a generational point of view. We have heard that we need time. This is a process that takes time, correct, but companies are very versatile and capable of adapting their productions to the time changing. Waste have maintained stability in Italy. We see how this system performs all over Italy, and we are aware of that. Waste is really to be considered a resource, a main resource, a raw material. We need technologies, but regulations at the same time to support this transition. Transition is also administrative. For this reason, we need rules to carry out this important process. It's not like changing a lamp. It's not as easy as that. We need to commit ourselves. We need to work with companies and ask companies to change their ways of producing, making goods. We need to understand that waste treatment requires proper regulations and administration. We need to do this quickly. Transition requires certain times, needs to be very quick, and we need to be very fast, on time and in time. This is what waste companies need to understand. Many of waste recycling companies understand that technologies and experimentations are very essential to speed up research and sponsorships. We need to work with interlocutors because these are those who have raw materials in their hands. We need to find also the right interlocution. Separate waste collection is not solving the problem of waste. It supports us, but requires new technologies. We need to change our mind. We need to change our views. An integrated system is in place. It is made up of different aspects and elements, including fees. And I reach my conclusion with some emblematic requests. We know that we have to plan. The industry is to be replanned, reorganized for a better future. And we need to be in time and on time, as I've already said. Administrators must be brave and follow best practices. Best practices are efficient in the north of Italy, so they can be replicated also in other areas, maybe in the south of Italy. It's clear that you can replicate, but adapting. Another point I want to stress is that we must change our systems, including award-based systems, to try to incentivize separate waste collection for the future of our children, because our future generation really deserve a better world. Michele Vasera has talked about waste and the importance to consider waste as raw materials. It's a very interesting concept. I don't know whether Mr. Carlo Montalbetti wants to contribute to this last comment. Maybe he is very prepared in this field, is very aware of the results on the sector. But as Razera was saying, there's a lot to do from the innovation point of view. Maybe we don't have talked a lot about packaging, but packaging is very important for innovation. What are you doing from this point of view in this field for circular economy?
Funziona. Scusatemi, avevo bisogno. Grazie dell'aiuto. Stavo dicendo che in effetti il tema dell'innovazione è un tema centrale.
I was saying that innovation is a key issue, is the core of the question. Why? First of all, we need to answer the new requirements. All the period connected with the pandemic and lockdown has totally changed our ways of consuming, purchasing. Let me say that the consumption of food has totally changed. We have a lot of food deliveries in this period. So the pandemic prompted some important changes, but this change also required knowledge, because material that we use also in food delivery must be eco-friendly. Materials must be compliant with security, safety, but one of the main objectives today is sustainability. So materials must be sustainable, and this is a totally new field. With this field is sometimes called eco-design, but this definition is not currently. I would suggest to use this expression, research, because in the cellulose sector, we try to polymerize this material. Cellulose has extraordinary features which represent great opportunities via the polymerization process. And what else? Bioplastics. Bioplastics have a different origin from fossils, but Italy is an excellence in this sense. Italy is featuring a totally different sustainability. And the present and the future are another issue. How these materials are composed. Let's consider the sector of food and beverage. Food and beverage require specific materials that have to be mixed and matched, but this mix and matching process is to be carried out in a very eco-friendly way. So these words are giving you an idea, a plastic idea of what we are considering. We are now aware that there's a total metamorphosis, a total change in this process. One material that through a process is changed to something else. From the recycling point of view, in Italy we manage almost 50 millions of tons, including tires, including glass. So we are a leading country in the Mediterranean area without any doubt. But it's very important to consider innovation and investments. And this is another issue, another question which has to do with the recovery fund. What I would like to tell you, and thank you very much for giving me this great opportunity, is that actually this reference that we have made many times today to team building, team working is obviously important, but the energy sector, the environmental sector are really two fields where this team building and team working are necessary. We need to work all together, but under the public control. The participation of the public sector in this transition is something detrimental to the process. We experienced the pandemic, and COVID-19 gave us the opportunity to understand that maybe there's a red button somewhere that someone can press at any time, changing our lives. But in the end, there's no red button to push. The energy sector is a key sector where we can work together, creating new opportunities together with the circular economy. And our country must take this opportunity now. Thank you very much, Mr. Montalbetti, for your contribution. Your comment has been very interesting. You have been talking about the circular economy, COP26, and G20. So very important issues in the end. We are almost at the end of this panel, and I would like to draw your attention onto another key issue. G20 tomorrow will have a very difficult session, so we are here just to see what will happen. But the circular economy and the climate change are going to be the key topics of next COP26. And next COP26 will be held in Milan. We have the pleasure to have the chief office of the municipality of Milan. Someone mentioned the situation we have in Rome with wastes and waste recycling and waste collection. Waste is actually a key issue, not only from environmental point of view, but also from many other aspects, including political, administrative, social aspects. We should be main players in this situation. I think that cities like Milan, Rome, Naples, but now I'm totally interested in Milan because Milan will be in charge of next COP26. So COP26 will be a new great opportunity. We'll have the opportunity to see new synergy and forms of dialogues. From your point of view, we want to understand from a metropolitan point of view how Milan is managing waste. How can we consider waste within this complete circular economy? Thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you very much, because it's really a great pleasure to me. We will be actually responsible for next COP26. We will talk about energy waste, but wastes are not only an environmental issue. Actually, wastes are a multidisciplinary aspects. We have mentioned waste as raw materials. That's true. But in order to reach the expected urban regeneration, we need to focus on all those products, items, materials that are very expensive on a national and global level. The city of Milan today is actually stuck. The environmental issues are imposing important challenges. Many meetings are being organized everywhere on regeneration, on waste recycling, and this is how we connect as City of Milan with next COP26, the next recovery plan, but also waste managing policies connected with the food sector. As we have heard, there are many initiatives focusing on food policies. Milan has adopted many actions in this field, starting from last 2015. We have implemented projects in the packaging sectors, collaborating with schools, education centers, involving young generations to make them understand how to profitably use plastics. So the municipality of Milan is actually very committed. We have also worked on other levels with commercial operators to understand how to proficiently use plastics from a commercial point of view, and this has also to do with the public and private relationship. Another issue regards the waste recycling fees applied on a municipal level. And it's true that last year we have launched an innovation project. This project was launched after the first lockdown period. We involved different associations, new incubators, new startups, looking at the circular economy as an important element. We decided to take that action following the bad situation caused by the COVID-19. We started that initiative focusing on common products, food, and the capacity to reduce packaging in general. We have said that during the lockdown, food delivery has especially increased. So that project was very important to try to pave the way for a new philosophy for consuming materials. A circular economy is not far from efficient waste management. The city of Milan has 200,000 students, and these young people represent an important human capital that makes it possible to look at innovation as a possible tool to grow from the point of view of management. But it's true that in the end, that you have to implement actions, because you plan actions, but in the end they have to made concrete. We have an innovation hub through which we study a proper management of wastes, even from the financial point of view. This is another step, an additional aspect that falls within this efficient waste management. But there's also something more regarding the distribution of
sulle comunità energetiche, ad esempio, che sembrano ambiti lontani da quelli.
The proper distribution of income and resources should be used to enhance the value of raw materials and resources. Enel X is carrying out a project in this field, producing important consequences also for the urban environment. So we have talked about innovation, social aspects, energy, eco-friendly initiatives, many topics that can give important answers. This also make understand us that Italy is really ready. It's working very well in these difficult scenarios. We will organize a pre-COP26 event with Globe. I think that the city of Milan wants to be ready for that event. We want to make you understand that we are very efficient. Milan wants to be a sort of window to the world. COP26 has certainly been an important opportunity to grow, to change our approach. The approach that people will adopt in the management of wastes will determine important consequences also within the traceability of waste within the urban area. So I think that this can be an important initiative to organize as a system using resources made available from the Italian government. We know that our actions will have an important impact also on other initiatives. Mr. Pellizzaro, thank you very much for your contribution.
Prego. Benissimo, allora grazie per questo
Okay,
spaccato.
very well then. Thanks for your inspiring speech. There is an helicopter flying above us. Obviously, the situation here in Naples due to the G20 is kind of strange, but well, we know that these things usually happens in such important events. So the scenario is quite positive and promising. Figures look good. I've been listening to some of you talking about the facilities. Together with Mr. Barberi, I would like to delve into some aspects, and together with Mr. Luini too, because we would like to know what are the areas of southern Italy most affected by these issues. Installations are a very sensitive topic. In fact, we need to export dozens of tons of waste. We could recycle those waste. We could transform those waste into energy. So why aren't we doing that? What could we do? What kind of solution do we have? Is it possible to create new facilities to manage our waste in Italy instead of exporting them? So is this functioning? Can you hear me? Together with Unicircle and Assoambiente, I represent the companies that contribute to somehow keep our cities clean, thanks to the waste collecting, thanks to waste sorting, and all the operations of logistics. And in addition, I also represent all those companies that through dedicated installations and facilities make materials and energy available again for the market. So basically, we represent the whole cycle of waste. So we consume, we generate waste, we generate packaging waste, and so on and so forth. It has been said that Italy, in this activity, by this activity I mean recovering material from waste, is at the vanguard in Europe. We have been talking about circular economy in Europe for the last few years, but in Italy, due to the scarce quantity of raw materials, and also due to the right amount of attention posed on the landscape heritage and environmental heritage, well, in spite of all these, we have a few raw materials. We have a scarcity of we lack of raw material. And a very interesting data is the circularity index. What does it say? What does it indicate? Well, it indicates the amount of material recovered from waste and employed by the market to build and construct new products. Well, in this index, Italy ranks among the first countries in Europe, but this index is below 20%. It means that for everything we see, for every object we have here, well, every object is made of 20% of recycled material. What does it mean? It means that we desperately need to bridge a facility-related gap, especially in those sectors that particularly need to be developed, to be improved, to be made stronger. In central and southern Italy, we have such problems, especially when it comes to waste sorting. And I agree with the previous speaker who said that landfills are a wound for the territory, but the only way to counter landfills is not a taxation, is not a tax, okay? It is rather favoring and facilitating the development of a market which is more ready to use materials coming from waste. How can this happen? How can we make this possible? Well, we could start initiatives, we could take on new initiatives using economic and fiscal incentives for those companies that only use recycled materials, or those companies that use growing materials that have been recycled. I am an industrial man. There is a system that I use and that I find it very useful. It is Industry 4.0. So we have, thanks to tax credit, the capacity and the possibility of increasing production, reducing costs, and also reducing the control level. Well, this is very interesting. Tax credit, like Industry 4.0, if tax credits were offered every consumer of recycled material, well, this would be a great plus for our country, a great strength for our country. A further necessary element is legislation, rules, laws. So I have been hearing that before. We should set minimum environmental criteria for every sector of consumption. This would be very, very helpful. No doubt, a faster creation of hand waste decree laws would be helpful too. And also a procedure simplification in terms of control, in terms of authorization would be very helpful again. And I agree on the fact that we have to work as a team. We have to go all together in this. As companies, as groups of companies, we are called to create these rules as trade associations too. So creating rules is fundamental. We need to set new regulations to favor the development of these markets, of these sectors. And we also need to facilitate the authorization of new facilities. This is essential if we want to overcome the main barrier for circular economy development. And this barrier is the lack of trust. We mistrust anybody who deals with waste, anybody who creates an installation for waste management, and we don't rely in anyone included in this sector. So the great problem here is mistrust. We also mistrust people who propose the use of recycled material for constructions and for other works. So the consortium and also trade associations carry out a fundamental activity because they try to spread such initiatives. I think that they are the main actors promoting promoting recycled materials. Also, there is also a prize, which is Prinsby, the acronym for Promote My Backyard. Well, by this prize, we try to give priority and to promote national projects regarding recycled material. We don't want these projects with recycled material to happen abroad. We want them to happen here. This is the goal. Okay, thank you very much. This this event is being followed by many students. This is the most important thing. This is the most important aspect of this day, of this meeting of today, and we are also being broadcasted on ASCA Media. I think this is fundamental because we are working as a team, especially media are working very hardly because they have to widespread such events. So thank you very much to all the organizers. We are now drawing the conclusions. Mr. Ruini, he is the president of CONAI. You have this important task of drawing the conclusions of today's proceedings. You have been here all day long. You have been taking notes. I saw you. We have been talking about consortium world. The consortium sector has been quoted and mentioned more than once. I think that many aspects, relevant aspects, are related to figures. So you will help us by showing us the figures of CONAI in 2020. Maybe we will be impressed by the figures you collected in 2020 in spite of the pandemic. It looks like, as waste management is concerned, we didn't have any emergence, at least in the front of on the front of waste, at least. So we have been talking about facilities. We know that southern Italy lacks the right and proper facilities to handle and to manage waste. We need to complete and we need to bridge this gap if we really want to have a circular economy and if we really want to implement a proper policy in terms of circular economy, as I was saying. Thank you very much. I would like to thank everybody. I would like to thank Mr. Margheri from Washington. He has kind of an American accent now. So please, Mr. President, go on with your conclusions. Thank you, and thank you very much for being so patient. Well, there have been ambulances, police, helicopter hanging around, going around because, you know, the G20 needs a top level of security. This is the current situation, and we can't do without it. Well, this is what we have today. I would like to start from certain figures. We are now living a very important and thrilling moment. On one hand, we are afraid, as it happens in front of any change, but on the other hand, there are also opportunities. Every change represents an opportunity. I've been dealing with these issues for 25 years. I am the president of CONAI, and I was lucky enough to be here when CONAI was born. I know how CONAI was designed. I know how it was structured. And I must say that every time we experiment a crisis, every time we have to face a crisis, on one hand, we are concerned, but on the other, we are feeling excited because of change, because of because of opportunities. And in fact, sustainability represents a great opportunity for all of us. Any topic regarding sustainability has been looked at with great attention and interest. Once we saw the we switched from horses to cars, and nobody would have expected it. Well, today, nobody would have expected to see such important changes in the sector of packaging. Nobody would have expected to see so many changes in terms of packaging material that is now recycled. 50 years ago, this was a technical issue. This was a technical matter, technical stuff. I remember when I printed the first environmental labels, and printing labels was something done by technicians, and that's it. But today, printing environmental labels is something more and more common and more widespread. And with the pandemic, we learned how to manage difficult situation at different levels. So the central government needed to do something, regions had to perform other tasks, vaccination had to be performed by every city, and now we have a new demand, the demand and the need for planning. Back in 1990, there was no need for planning for such structured agendas, and now we feel this need more and more urgently. In fact, transitions are efficient only if they are planned, if they are managed safely and properly. In fact, the last crisis has not been wisely managed because it was actually a healthcare crisis, but also an economic crisis. And also the previous crisis, the 2008 crisis, was an economic downturn, and everybody felt disconnected, everybody felt lost, like it happened in 2020 with COVID. We realized that we didn't have face masks because face masks were owned by the Chinese, and then we needed to, well, to find a remedy, to find a solution. So we have had a healthcare crisis, we have had an economic crisis, but we didn't have, we haven't had a waste crisis yet. And this is thanks to different consortium, because consortium helped us understand what was going on. We intervened in Emilia Romagna, then we intervened in other regions, and then the central government decided to act. So we were under lockdown. Waste sorting was still efficient. We had more time to understand how it worked, but on the other hand, the recycling installations and facilities were just standing still. So stocks were just full. They could have stopped their activity, but that didn't happen. In fact, the system acted as a whole, CONAI and the consortium and the public administration, the municipalities, they have worked all together so to avoid the interruption of these systems, of this stocking system. So we realized the importance of systems. Systems are essential to govern, to rule, and to manage such situations. And today we need to govern and to manage a similar situation. Figures are important. We were forecasting an increase by 1% increase, even if everything was stopped. And instead, sorry, we were forecasting a 71%, and actually we had a 73%. So 3% percentage point more than previous year. This is an important figure, a very telling one, because it shows you that the system managed to stand and to resist the situation and to be durable. Today we need to find the way to govern and to lead the change and to lead the transition. We are at Federico II, and this is something important for everybody, because if we step back, if we take a look at the past, we realize the importance of know-how and of skills. In fact, Federico II University is a very telling example of that, and we are actually witnessing and realizing that there is a demand for facilities and installation. We need 2 billion euros to create those facilities and to create jobs. But if we really want to construct or to build those facilities, we need to have the people, and we need to have the right technicians carrying out the right projects. And on the other hand, on the side of the public administration, there have to be public officers that correctly evaluate and assess those projects carried out by technicians. So competencies and skills are needed, desperately needed everywhere among technicians and inside the public administration. We are recovering because we lagged behind in competencies before, but now we are escalating. We are climbing this wall, and today we are here in one of the most ancient universities in southern Italy. And southern Italy, I repeat, desperately needs to escalate and to climb again this wall. What happens in the south usually? Well, problems are common in southern parts of any country. Managers arrive, entrepreneurs invest, but then they realize it is too much difficult, it is too difficult, and they just give up. Well, this cannot happen again. Competencies and innovation have to go hand in hand. They have to be parallel processes. Well, this is a central issue. Together with CONAI, together with consortium, we want to reflect on the previous 25 years of experience, on the last 25 years of experience. We rank second in Europe in terms of per capita recycling. Only Germany is better than us. So we have overcome a range of targets. Actually, we are late on plastic. Now we have to check the new rules, the new rules, yes. But we need raw materials, as Mr. Ruini said. So we are abandoning the waste logic, and we are accessing now, we are adventuring in the urban mine of material, to use a metaphor. And this is something that will mark an era. It will mark an era. We can't find second raw materials. 15 years ago, the main problem was we have waste and we don't know how to eliminate, how to dismantle them. Well, today we want more waste because there are new rules and because consumers are asking questions, as it happened with used dresses, with used clothes. In the past, exchanging and lending and borrowing dresses and clothes was impossible, was inconceivable. But today it happens, and everybody wants to exchange clothes and waste as well. That's why we are working both in the fashion sector and in the art sector, because we want to understand how to exchange and how to make waste more recyclable, more circular, because this is an important part of the process. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you. Your final speech was really, really good. I know that you maybe prepared a more technical speech, but I understand your efforts, your final remarks have been really, really inspiring. Mr. Ruini has been talking about competencies. We are in a beautiful university and a historical university. I listened to, well, maybe I'm going to say this and you will think that this has nothing to do with our proceedings. I listened to the speech of the director of the Italians Abroad Association. This is a very important data. Currently, Italian researchers are more than 33,000, and they are subscribed to the Italian Association of Researchers Abroad. So these 33,000 researchers abroad have to be safeguarded, have to be protected, because they are a cultural heritage for us. I think that the set of knowledge, the set of competencies in Italy needs to represent a tool to increase the speed, to be quicker and faster in circular economy, and to work as a team. Thank you very much. See you next time.